2, 1.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, March 2nd, 2026 meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board. We were postponed last week for the snow, so we are meeting on a off night for us. Start with my script. This is Select Board Chair Josh Levine. I will be confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dan Zwerko.
Here.
Beneath Hemavathi.
Here.
Andrew Lamb.
Here.
Shelley Maynard DeWolf.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons.
Here.
And Mike is off, right?
Right.
Okay. And Peggy Sheldon. This open meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board is convened in person and via Zoom webinar as posted on the agenda and town's website, identifying how the public may join. There is no chat or Q&A function. All of the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadowma.gov. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. This meeting will feature resident comment. For residents attending the meeting in person, please raise your hand when we get to the comments section of the meeting and I will call on you to approach the microphone. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute, unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If anyone in attendance is recording this meeting, please announce yourself now. Seeing none, we move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up, we have our announcements. Community Preservation Committee Spring Application Cycle. The Community Preservation Committee will now be accepting applications to be submitted by April 7th, 2026 for possible consideration at the 2026 Fall Special Town Meeting. The application form and information about the Community Preservation Act process can be found on the Community Preservation Committee page at www.longmeadowma.gov. Plastic people, the hidden crisis of microplastics. Oh, this already happened. I'll read it anyway. The Energy and Sustainability Committee, in partnership with various town committees and organizations, will be hosting a special screening of the film Plastic People, The Hidden Crisis of Microplastics on February 25th, 2026 at 6:30 in the Long Meadow High School auditorium. The film will be followed by a discussion with Q&A opportunities. Additional information at longmeadowma.gov/civic-alerts. Okay, first up we have resident comments. Name and address, please.
Tom Shea, 81 Green Meadow Drive. Last spring, you were told there will be a catastrophic incident at Springfield Water and Sewer. Based on what? There are concerns about the water level for firefighting. You should have Springfield Water and Sewer in to discuss the forecasted catastrophic incident. It's probably news to them. None of the other 4 wholesale customers have a secondary tank: Agawam, Springfield, Ludlow, and East Long Meadow. I believe the Select Board gave a resounding no last July to a secondary tank that would last only 8 hours, cost over $5 million, and increase water rates by 6%. The risk reward is not there. Firefighting. Select Board has had the explicit ability to curtail non-essential water use for the last 5 years through 2 droughts as decreed by the state and actually in previous years. In the last 38 years as a resident, the Select Board has never curtailed non-essential water use for low water levels except for a Long Meadow mechanical issue 2 years ago. In my 66 years, Springfield has only had a handful of soft curtailments, not bans, when I was young. Last July and August, during 2 of the hottest and irrigation-prone weeks of the year, the tank barely breached the 20-foot level during morning irrigation and shower time, quickly recovered. I'm not sure the risk justifies the capital being spent to expand the existing Enfield tie-in. The money could be better spent on a review and likely improvements of the monitoring, communication, and mechanical equipment and overall safety of the water tank and pumping station and not wait until 2030 on your capital plan. The published presentation for the water budget and rates for tonight is good, and I appreciate the timeliness. However, it needs assumptions and more granularity and detail. You should also review the retained earnings level. Check my numbers, but more importantly, the estimated fixed portion of the water budget is 50 to 55%. However, the budgeted fixed fee for water only captures 60%. My estimated fixed charges and should likely be 20% this year, going to 25% next year. Last year, Springfield had a professional rate analysis firm review its rate setting, and approximately 30% of the average user's bill is fixed. In Long Meadow, the average residential water user, only 8% of their bill is fixed. In the mean, it is 11%. Both are unacceptably low. As the fixed fee increases, the variable unit costs go down. Modern utility rate setting says users of water that are providing the capacity to consume should share equally in the fixed costs and expenses of the enterprise. A higher fixed fee would reduce the risk of revenues to weather conditions and provide more certainty of revenues.
10 seconds.
Thank you. 10 seconds, I've never done that early. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Anybody online, Peggy? No? Okay. All right, our kudos and plaudits. Thank you to Meals on Wheels volunteer, Eugene Simmons. Big thank you to Long Meadow Adult Center's Meals on Wheels volunteer, Eugene Simmons, for his thoughtful gesture to the department's kitchen staff. He surprised kitchen staff with personalized chef jackets, each one embroidered with their name. A great way to make the team special, so thank you to Mr. Simmons. Neighbors Helping Neighbors. The Long Meadow Town Manager's Office received a handwritten card from homebound residents sharing a recent experience they had. At the end of January, during the heavy snowstorm, these residents were visited by 2 Long Meadow High School students with an offer to shovel the driveway for them. These residents were not known to each other, and the resident who wrote the card wanted to share their appreciation and let the town manager's office know how joyful and happy it made them and pass on what the youth in Long Meadow are doing. Long Meadow Fire Department. Deputy Chief Andrew Mark graduated from the Massachusetts Firefighting Academy Chief Fire Officer Management Training Program on February 10th, 2026. The Chief Fire Officer Management Training Program is a 4-month program for new chiefs and rising officers. The course is delivered jointly by the MFA and the UMass Boston Edward J. Collins Jr. Center for Public Management, and addresses the administrative, organizational, and executive leadership duties that today's chief officers are entrusted with. Now that he has finished the program, he is also set to receive his Chief Fire Officer credentialing through the Massachusetts Fire Commission this spring. A big congratulations to Deputy Chief Mark, who's balanced this class along with his normal duties at the fire department. And thank you to the Town Manager's Office for putting those together. That's 3 great things to hear. Moving on to Select Board comments. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks. I thought I'd bring the board an update from the 250 Task Force. This is the task force to commemorate local events celebrating the 250th birthday of America. And so the task force has met a couple times. It's been really exciting. There's a really good representation of people from like the Historical Society, even the Tree Committee, the Adult Center, and it's there's a lot of people who are very excited about making this a meaningful event. It looks like we're going to try to have a couple events, one on July 4th, which is a Saturday, where it'll be a bit like the Memorial Day service, but the main event will be focused around a time capsule, which we're hoping to get a lot of community interest in with schools and different committees basically contributing to what would go in the time capsule. And also in the fall, there would be a Liberty Tree, ideally. The fall primarily because that would be a better time to plant the trees according to our tree committee people. And also our moderator who's on the task force would like to do a Declaration of Independence reading, but it's a bit more involved than just a reading. It sounds like it's kind of a discussion about why it's a living document, and it sounds very exciting. So those are the things that we're planning, but the task force is requesting a modest amount of funds from the town, which Lynn has told me that will only be available if we have an article at town meeting. So we're working on that. Those funds wouldn't be available until like mid-May, obviously, but hopefully that will work out well. The main cost is the time capsule. So that's what we're planning.
So that's a pretty modest amount of money for
$10,000 is basically the budget that we're hoping
Okay.
for.
That's Seems,
Pretty
reasonable.
modest, right? Yeah,
And it, I'll have to do it every 250 years, so.
right.
Seems worth it, okay.
Yeah,
Anybody
and
else?
then,
Oh,
and then I think also the Declaration of Independence reading will coincide with when it was read in Long Meadow, right? When Stephen Williams first.
Well, it
read
won't be
here?
quite that, is what I'm understanding. So the anniversary date was August 8th, 1776. But the tree committee thinks that maybe if we wait until the fall, a little later, will be ideal for the survival of the tree, so.
Or they
yeah.
want to do the reading at the same time.
Well, it
as the
just
tree.
seems like we want to try to make both events,
Mhm.
like, things that the community can know about and count on, so
Got it.
that's probably what will happen.
Do you know if the task force is going to come to like another select board meeting to talk about some of this, or do you think it's just the next time we'll kind of hear about this is at town meeting?
Probably
or
at town
before?
meeting. I mean,
Okay.
certainly if we wanted them to come talk, we could. I think at this point, Mary Beth Bergeron is kind of spearheading the time capsule. Like, she's looked into how to order it, what, the things to put inside it and things like that. And so we have some time. But the main thing is this article for the town meeting. That's the crucial thing.
Sounds like a joke, but it's probably very hard to get a time capsule. I bet there's a lot of backup on the orders.
There are a
This
lot
year.
of, well, believe me, we've talked about reenactors and cannon firing artillery guys, and believe me, July 4th is not going to be an easy day to get those people. But what's interesting is somebody asked, is there a time capsule from the past that is in town somewhere that we could open, right? And everybody's around the table thinking, I don't know. So we looked into this, and there are 2 time capsules from 1983, because the key years to look into are 1970, 1776 plus 50 and 100 years on and on. But also, the towns was incorporated in 1783, so every 50 and 100 years since then. And in 1983, there were 2 time capsules on the green to be opened in 50 years and 100 years. So we're not quite there, but in 2033, we'll have something to open.
Okay. Well, thank you for the report on that. I just wanted to mention, and this also could have gotten kudos and plaudits, but DPW has had a heck of a winter, and I know it's been very difficult to find somewhere to put the snow, and a lot of corners are getting stacked up. I know there's been some work to help on that, and with waste management, it's been difficult, so thank you. And we have Sean and Lisa here, and I know you put in a lot of work on this, so fielded a lot of calls, I'm sure. So thank you for your hard work. It's been a really difficult winter, not just for our town, but all across the Northeast and all down the eastern seaboard. So thank you for your hard work. Anybody else? Great. Dan, good? All right. So next up on the agenda is our dog hearing, but we have about 20 minutes until we get to that. So why don't we look at the first of the road closure applications?
I move to approve the sustainability event road closure application on May 9th, for May 9th, 2026.
Second.
And I hear I see some Vibbers over there. Is that, were you here for something in particular? Want to make sure we didn't skip over you. Oh,
Just he has to observe a meeting for Mayor Badge.
all right. Wow.
Welcome.
Good for you. Yeah, thank you for coming. And good luck. Okay, sorry, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor have to do a roll. Peggy?
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Ms. Mayor Angelo?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mrs. Swerko?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have the Pride Festival.
Yeah, and I'll move to approve the Pride Festival road closure application for September 13th, 2026.
Second.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, go ahead.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Ms. Mayor Angelo?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mrs. Swerko?
Yes.
And we got those in nice and early, so that's great. Then we have 2 LACCF applications for 1-day liquor license.
Yes, I'm,
March 5th and March 24th.
okay, perfect. So I'll move to approve the LACCF liquor license applications for March 5th and March 24th, 2026.
Second.
All right, anything further? All those in favor?
Roll
Oh,
call.
sorry.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Mayor DeWolf?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mrs. Zwerko?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and often, as we saw with other applications, when people realize it's a thing, we get more than one. So we have well, why don't you go ahead, Lynn, or Peggy, whoever's
Yep,
presenting.
so, just as you said, you had previously received a junk or secondhand dealer license, and now you have another one for another business, Crowns Buy and Sell. It's an online business buying antiques and estates and selling them online from their home. And they would like to be able to receive a permit from the select board to carry out this business.
Is the DBA and the permit from us, that's all they need?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I will move to approve Crown's Buy and Sells junk and secondhand article dealer's license.
Second.
All right, anything further? Peggy?
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Mayor DeWolf?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mrs. Zwerko?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we still have some time before our hearing. Why don't we start with Fuss and O'Neill, at least, or are they online?
The presentation, they're not on yet. Well, Mike
Okay.
is. Is there just one?
Yeah, there's just one.
Do you want to do like town manager's report or something?
Did I skip that?
Or just?
You didn't, but just in.
Is that on here?
Because Fuss and
It
O'Neill, it
is.
might take longer than 15 minutes.
Maybe
Oh, yeah,
go
there
to
it is. Oh, we can get
correspondence and
started.
Town manager's report.
Well, that won't take, well, we'll see if it takes 15 minutes. All right, why don't we wait on that, and we can do that after the dog hearing, hopefully. All right, anything on correspondence? Gee, I told you it wouldn't take 15 minutes.
Keep moving. Keep on
Let's see
moving.
what we can get through.
Keep rolling.
All right, why don't you go ahead,
Okay,
Lynn?
thanks. So a brief budget update. We received the health insurance number. It came in at 11.2% increase over prior year. This is for the active employee health insurance plan. This was above our initial projection of 7.5%, but well below what Scantic Valley Health Trust their actuarial had recommended, which was 17%. This resulted in an increase to our health insurance line item for $174,853 over our initial projection of $529,285 from the prior year. This definitely has put a wrinkle in us balancing the budget. It's added to a growing deficit number that we are still carrying right now. The budget will be presented to you March 23rd, at that March 23rd meeting. March 9th, you will have a presentation for the school budget. So we're still working along, and I'm hoping to be able to present you as close to a balanced budget with potentially some different options on March 23rd. And an update on our emergency communication system that we were using. People maybe remember that we used a system called Code Red for years. We just made a switch to a company called Everbridge. This is for our emergency alert and community notification program. It allows us to put out messages to the community with vital or critical information, mostly, snow, parking bans, or anything weather-related generally. And you can subscribe to receive those notifications either by email, text, or phone call. You can also opt in to specific notification methods that you want, or all of them. You can create your own account with Everbridge that's linked right on the town website and make those edits to how you want to receive information. One of the big reasons that we made this switch, actually there were two reasons. One is the platform is a lot easier for us to use and manage. It gives us greater user controls. And two, maybe the biggest reason is it was less expensive. So that was a nice thing that we had happen, because that's usually not the case. And that concludes my updates for tonight. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Where did we get the 7.5% for the anticipated increase on the health insurance?
That's based on our historical. So what we do is we look back at all of our prior years, and that's how we build our budget in general, is we figure out, what things have cost over the last, generally, we use 3 to 5 years. And so our health insurance number has not been above 7% in quite a while. Last year was 4, and a year before was 0. So this kind of was a fairly staggering number, although I will say probably not entirely unexpected, given that the climate of health insurance is really just out of control lately. And we've seen what's happened in our neighboring communities that are not part of Scantic Valley. So I think we thought we maybe had another year before we had a double-digit increase, but unfortunately that wasn't the case.
So in the future years, we won't be quite as conservative, I guess.
Right.
We already were pretty high, but,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, we definitely keep an eye on that, because that's going to be I know we've talked about for other towns that are just getting absolutely raked over the coals with it. And I have a question on the DPW report. I know we have the hot patch on Wednesday. Do we anticipate when that'll open up for more hot patching?
So we can get it already. We haven't had time to, because after we plow, we've been going back out, pushing snow things back. So as soon as we get this weather break, I think we'll be able to do some.
Okay. Great. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions on the town manager's report or any of the monthly reports? Okay. All right. Keep moving on until we move back. Move on to old business. Entertain a motion to approve the select board minutes from February 2nd, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
All right, anything further? Roll call, Peg?
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Hemaphathy?
Yes.
Ms. Bear DeWolf?
Yes.
Mr. Swerko? Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we have time for Sean and Lisa, at least on this part.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead? How gracious, Sean.
Lisa Hodgson, DPW Business Manager.
So I have some updates and recommendations for our trash and recycling program. As you know, when we deployed all the carts, people could order their new size, or they could have chose to pre-order a certain size. Once the carts were deployed, a lot of people signed up for swapping their carts. The carts did come in, I want to say, mid-December. And we started swapping before the holidays. We swapped all through January. I will say we took a little break here in February just because staff that help, with the residents were plowing, pushing back snowbanks and things like that. So at this point, we're about 45% done. That's about 200 carts were done. We have about 224 to go in 164 homes. Anyone who we had a working email for, we had been emailing saying sign up for an appointment to come and swap. It's now more residents that either can't come during business hours, can't transport the carts, or we didn't have an email, so it's manually calling each resident to say, can you come and swap it? I did have a new staff start today, so she's in her downtime of training, will definitely be able to be reaching out to anyone who we had a phone number to, so I'm hoping with warmer weather, we won't be on plowing as much, and we should be able to get back to swapping. We did run into a few that we reached out to. They said they no longer want to swap, or what they had signed up for, they decided they even want bigger than that. So right now, we're just swapping to what you requested. If you have a different change, we're giving you what you want, and we'll deal with a second swap later if that's what we want to do. So potentially we might need to do an outside business hours opportunity if people work and they can't come swap during work hours. And then we might need to come up with bring the carts to the people if they don't have a vehicle that can transport them. Also, we need to look at if people lose, damage, or want a future swap. Do we want to set prices to pay for if your car drove into your garage and just smashed the cart, they need a new one? The 96-gallon cost us $60, the 64-gallon cost us $57, and the 48-gallon cost us $53. That is with shipping split out to purchase them. So we will need to set a price for that and decide if all cases require a price.
Lisa, a question on that.
Yep.
Does our waste management contract, if they damage a cart?
So yes,
cover
if
it?
they damage, or a few of them right when they were training with the new vehicles actually just dumped it right in, it whoop. So they do reimburse us right now in their contract. It is a $50 reimbursement. So they are paying us anytime they crush it or whoop it right over.
Well, that doesn't cover any of the, any of our costs.
Yes.
Okay.
Update, we still are collecting cardboard at the recycle center when it's open. We did have a problem right at the holiday season. We were filling like within an hour. That has gone away now that it's not really holiday buying boxes. So definitely next year we'll have to plan in advance whether we open more and have it emptied more often in the week, or if we have a second dumpster put there or something like that. April, the recycle center will resume its full hours. Another thing we need to look at is when Waste Management went to contract with us, they put in $1 per pay-as-you-throw blue overflow bag. So that we did pass to the residents, and is why the bag price went from $2 to $3 a bag. Now that they're using their new trucks, they have found that it's very difficult to get our blue bags into the truck. The truck dumps on the top, and so you can't just toss the bag up and get it in, where the old trucks it was in the side. So they like to empty the cart, try to put the blue bag into the cart, use the cart to empty it again. But if people sort of fill the bag fat versus skinny, it can't get in the cart and they're struggling. So they have reached out to us and want to know if we're willing to look at our program and see if there's anything we can do. We obviously can say we're taking no action. This is our program. They signed the contract. That's what you got to do. But we do know from residents, a lot of people say the trash cart's so small, isn't there a way to get a bigger trash cart? So we could look at if we want the option of people can get a larger cart. Obviously, we would want them to pay for it because it's like paying for the tonnage in the blue bag. We could start exploring that option. Another option would be they keep their 35-gallon cart. We give them a second 35-gallon cart so they then have 2 trash carts. And of course, all of this would be if they ever moved or anything, it always going to come back. We do get grants right now for having the 35-gallon cart. It actually comes out to about $4,400 of our Mass DEP grant is because of the carts and how everyone has it. I have reached out to say, is there a threshold that if we have, 5%, 10%, when do we lose that grant? They haven't been able to come back with an answer on that yet. And we will actually have about 200 extra 64 gallons when we do all the recycling swaps, just because that was one of the defaults and not many are taking it back. So we could always put black lids on those carts that we wouldn't really need to be doing a whole nother purchase, and it would lessen the inventory that we have at the DPW. So my recommendations are to set a price for the swaps and for replacement carts and any future swaps, because years down the road, there's always going to be someone new moving in. They got these type of recycling carts and they want something different. And then potentially add a transportation charge if we need to drop it to the house. I have looked at other towns. I know West Springfield charges $25. I suggested $15. And then the only other thing is sort of look at a direction you would like to move in on, if we want to move in a direction or not, on trash carts and offering a different option. So looking for feedback on where we want to move.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to, let's say someone was able to buy a second trash cart, are we paying Waste Management for every cart?
So if we keep our program the same, we don't have to renegotiate. If we potentially gave people a second cart, that is sort of changing what they do, that now there's 2 trash carts
Right.
when they get to their house. So there's potential that they would like to add $2 per cart that extra they pick up. If we upsize the cart and say take back that 35, give them a 64, we're really not changing what they do, so we wouldn't really need to renegotiate the price per house because that house has 1 cart and it's just a different size to grab it.
My concern is there's a lot of pitfalls to this. For example, a limited number of 65-gallon carts. Like, so a couple things. If let's say you mentioned we have 65-gallon carts. Well, we have 200 of them. When you start doing this, we give out 200, then people are going to be very upset that they wanted to do it.
Yes.
The second thing is, you say, oh, you can buy another 45-gallon cart for $60, but then the town pays extra ultimately for every time. So then, it's also kind of very difficult to make that fair, I think.
So potentially you would have to put a fee on adding a cart because that resident is using more trash for not only hauling if it's a second cart and tonnage of going over. So the hope would be we would set a price that would cover all those.
But for how many
Plus,
years?
I would say any year that they have it because they're like renting the extra
I see.
space, we'll say. And then also in there would build a price that if we had to start purchasing more carts because more households needed it, the price of buying the cart is somehow going to
Well,
cover.
that does solve my concern about, like, I don't know, I thought you were suggesting a certain amount of money for in perpetuity, you get this free trash can. But if it's kind of a charge
yeah.
that's,
Like,
it's
it's like-
obviously more complicated.
Like
because you
buying
have to
your
keep
blue
track.
bag in a cart form for the year,
That's
I
right.
guess.
Is that logistically difficult for the DPW to
So
charge
it would
certain
probably go
houses?
on your water sewer utility bill, and it would be like a trash
Yeah.
cart fee.
Okay.
Easy to roll out, as the houses get it, versus, if you said every house needed the fee, of course, that's a little bit more to put in the system, but.
It's not very green to encourage more
Yes,
trash.
well, that's what
It
our
also-
goal is, reduce
yeah.
your trash, and you pay as you throw with the bag. So, I know the Recycling Commission really isn't gung-ho about it, but we do realize with automated and, all the other towns, it is a push up the haulers. It's difficult with loose bags and, yeah.
And the grant is $4,400 a year?
That yearly, we're getting that just
I mean,
for the
yeah.
cart. I mean, we get more for having a recycle, center and all that type of stuff, but yes.
I wish it was more, so it's a
Oh, of
more
course.
no-brainer. But it's a rounding error.
So if we start to lose that grant, then obviously what you're charging residents to, you kind of would want to make up for we lost the
Yeah.
grant as well.
Yeah, I think, I can't speak for everybody, but I think we need more info on,
Okay.
especially on what we can do,
Mm-hmm.
how much our actual costs are. I would like to avoid this. Most people can live with the trash. I understand that there may be some cases where people have more. That's what the bags are for. I'm sure we could figure out something, or maybe we can't make the bags smaller probably, but, yeah, I would like to find a way to not do this.
Okay.
But I would like more info on the hard costs and
Okay.
and vis-à-vis the grant, how much
Mhm.
what's our threshold? But, if people are clamoring for it, we can find a way, but I don't want us to spend any extra money on this, as Andrew was saying.
Yeah, I think, for your recommendations, I think the first part and the cost that you've kind of outlined there for replacement cars and future swaps, transportation charge, I think that all makes
Sure,
sense. And then, I guess I'd also want to get a sense from Waste Management about how many blue bags are they actually having to get rid of every week?
Because we're paying for them, I could give you that number. I want to say it's like 68,000 a year. Yeah, so
What the heck?
there is a lot of, certain households are going to have multiples all the time. They probably should qualify, might want the cart. There's other people that put it out once a month or something. You probably keep the blue bag for them in Waste Management when, it's just one every so often. But yeah, it is actually a lot of
Yeah, that's a
of
lot more than I
bags.
thought
Yeah.
it would be.
That's a shocking number. Right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think what you were outlining with potentially providing people the option of having this bigger 64-gallon cart for trash for people that are utilizing the blue bags more, that makes sense to me. If we were to go beyond the 200 carts, then we would have to find some way
Yep.
to pay for that.
Yep.
Have that charge passed along to them. But these carts are kind of sitting there anyways.
Yeah.
And so, so I think that's a good idea. So that makes sense to me, at least.
And I know the Recycle Commission, they'd probably be pretty involved and say even they'd probably do trash audits and stuff like that for a resident to maybe have to like qualify and make sure that they're recycling before they could get the cart too, I'm sure. if we wanted to start, make a process like that when we wanted to narrow down who gets them and do you qualify or not? Because we just don't want to give it to someone who's normally not making much trash, and then they have all this room, and now all of a sudden it's free for all.
All right, do you feel like you have enough guidance from us? for
I
now?
guess, do I just need an official approval for rates of swapping?
Yeah, I mean, are we comfortable doing that now? Normally, we don't vote
I
on
know,
things
so
the
that's
first day
it.
it's presented,
So come back
but
for that, or-
if it's helpful to you, I'm fine with that. Any objections from the
I'll
board?
be here, I'll be here all month, so.
Dan has his hand up.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I just had a question for Lisa. So Lisa, when we're talking about swapping the trash bins, are those numbers all based on, in terms of dollar amounts, are they all based on, like the volume? Or should we be looking at, I mean, not that I want to have a higher cost, but if it's going to cost the town more money to have like a smaller amount from a volume perspective for purchasing additional bins in the future, is that something you've looked at?
Yeah, so when we just did this order, I it was one truckload. It wasn't multiple truckloads. I looked at how many we order, and we've ordered just trash carts in the previously of like just 50 at a time. So the hauling of it, if you need a truck, is like $2,000, but sometimes if you're a smaller load, they can like ship it on pallets. So it is a good rough number of average if we were to buy even just I'm going to call it a smaller load of them.
Gotcha, okay, and then the other, just more of a comment on waste management in terms of the blue bag issue. I mean, I just see this more as a waste management issue, and I don't want to burden the taxpayers and certainly also the DPW from additional work that we have to do. And I feel like if this contract was already negotiated, this clearly should have been something that waste management should have considered at that time. So I would like to get more information, like Josh said, like Denise said, but I just don't want it to be a burden on the taxpayers, on the town. I think we've been good stewards during these negotiations, and we've done our part, and I just feel like waste management could help be creative in solving this problem. Another thought that I'm thinking about is, I don't know if this is good for the town, but something that we've been doing with the excess recycling, perhaps waste management allows us to have excess blue trash bin or blue trash bags to toss out at a location in a dumpster that they remove, and only blue bags can go in there. I know that's a burden on the taxpayers from having to travel and drop off the excess trash, but I do want to hear from waste management around some of the creativity or options that they might have.
Okay.
Can we make a movement, Josh?
Lynn just whispered in my ear that we are meeting in a week, so we could just vote
Yeah,
next week
yeah,
if that's okay.
and I'll
Yeah.
be here.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, we're going to pop back in the agenda now to our dog hearing, our 7:30 public hearing. Do we have, yes, okay. Attorney Chaplin is here. Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much for being here. We miss you in person, but Zoom will work. We've seen plenty of you.
Sure. So, I do like to do these in person. This one, unfortunately, I'm doing remote.
No,
But
that's
it's good to see
fine.
you nonetheless.
Thank you. Can you explain our procedure? Should we open, I know we have to open the meeting. I don't remember. Do we read the notice? Why don't you tell us, give us some guidance?
Absolutely. So just at the highest level, and I know the board's unfortunately well-versed in this procedure now, for the benefit of anyone that might be watching on TV or might be in the audience who's not familiar with these proceedings, or anybody who might be participating that's not been a participant to these type of proceedings before. Under state law in Massachusetts, where you have a complaint relative to the behavior of a dog, that a dog has attacked somebody, or another animal or livestock, or has just behaved in a manner so as to give rise to a complaint. Pursuant to statutory law, the board is a hearing authority that's charged with investigating the complaint, and it's effectively an evidentiary hearing. It's kind of like a court hearing. There's not a formal requirement that we read the hearing notice. Typically, we do use a motion to open the hearing. At that point, it's open for taking in evidence, just like many other municipal proceedings. Where these proceedings are a little different is that the first phase after the hearing closes, or after the evidence stops, is the board deliberates on whether to give the dog or the dogs a dangerous designation, a nuisance designation, or neither of those designations. And under this statutory framework that we work under, there are very specific definitions, and I can read those to the board later and field any questions that the board has. And we could consider that perhaps a guilt or innocence phase to the deliberations. If the board finds that there's some measure of guilt, so that the dog or dogs fits within the nuisance definition or the dangerous definition, then we proceed to a second phase, which you could liken to a sentencing phase, where the board would order remedial measures upon the owner of the dog to ameliorate the impact that the dogs have had on the community. And if it's a nuisance dog, the statute's actually quite open-ended. There is a nuisance bylaw in Longmeadow that could shed some light on what the board might consider in a nuisance situation, although a local bylaw cannot supersede a statute. So certainly I don't think the local bylaw limits the board's discretion under the statute. So that's a nuisance situation. Should there be a finding of dangerousness, there are 7 specific remedies that the board chooses between, ranging between leashing, which is the law in Longmeadow anyway, as your least severe, and euthanizing the dog as your most severe. So with that, the next step would be to open the hearing and to start hearing testimony from the folks who may be present to tell the board about what's happened.
All right, thank you. And Shelley, you've not done one of these before, right? Okay, great. So any questions? We've done, and this is our 3rd or 4th, I think. So, yeah. All right, so I entertain a motion to open the public hearing for the dog as nuisance complaint.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Hemaphathy?
Yes.
Ms. Maynard DeWolf?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Dorgo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Attorney Chappell, we have our, the complainant is here and our animal control officer. So if you'd like to come up and you could state your name and address, please. And Marty Lee, if you also want to come up now.
My name is Mary Breeding, and my address is 57 Shady Knoll Drive in Longmeadow. I'm the Vice Commodore at the Pioneer Valley Yacht Club, and have been a member of the club for over 20 years. Do you need to introduce yourself too? Everybody knows who you are.
Please, Marty.
I'm Marty Lee Caramonte. I'm the dog officer for, I think, 21 years now.
Okay,
I think so, or 20? 21.
thank you. And is anyone else here related to this matter?
There's another member here who's the controller at the club, Ed
Yes.
Weigel.
My name's Ed Weigel.
Want to come up?
Thank you. Ed Weigel, 41 Berkeley Drive. And I'm the current controller of the Pioneer Valley Yacht Club and former Commodore.
And I'm not familiar with nautical terms. What is the Vice Commodore?
President, Vice President.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Attorney Chaplin, do we need to swear in anybody?
We do. We need to swear in any witnesses that are going to give testimony. So I would ask, although I can't see them, I would ask that the 3 individuals that just identified themselves all raise their right hands, and I ask them if they solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter now in hearing.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, so we only have, there's no respondents here. So I think we'll just hear from, if you want to speak on what brought about the complaint.
Yeah. These are copies of the reports that have been filed on the dogs of the owner who lives next door to us since 2016. There are at least 100 reports here about various actions of the dogs. I've been, as I said, a member of the club for 20-odd years, and I've been making some of these complaints over the years, but certainly not all of them. My biggest concern is that one of the dogs, and they are both Irish setters now. There used to be a chow, but the chow's no longer there. So they're both Irish setters, and I'm not sure I can tell the difference between one and the other. But one of the dogs has been aggressive with members and children. They growl. They charge at cars when our members pull up to the club. You could go there probably just about any day of the week and see at least one of the dogs on the property. They have scared our members. Some of our members can't get out of the car. They've damaged the car of at least one of our members by jumping up on the car. Some of these reports talk about individuals in the community who have their own dogs and have taken them down, not to the club necessarily, but to the town park or to the farm fields or whatever, and they have found the dogs to be aggressive. There was one report in here where they bit someone else's dog. So my biggest concern is the safety of people at the club and in the area, especially now with the new town park. I can only see an increase in the number of community members who are going to be going down to that area, and the dogs are just running loose all the time. I know that Marty has, I don't know how many times she's fined them. The dogs are not licensed. They haven't been licensed for years. And I mean, I've sent certified letters to the owner. I've gone over there and talked to him. Very pleasant man. He purportedly has made efforts to strengthen the fencing and heighten the fencing around the house. But if I can describe the property, they have a pool on the side of their house, and they have a fence, which I believe is a 4-foot fence around the pool area. They have a higher fence around the outside of their lot, and the dogs manage to jump the fences constantly. As I said, you can go there just about any day of the week and see at least one of the dogs wandering around in the farm fields, at the club, and so on. Obviously, they do the other things that dogs do. They dig in our planting beds. They leave dog waste all over the place. We don't even allow our members to have dogs unless they're just traveling directly from their car to their boats. So they see these dogs and get irritated that they can't have their dogs there. As I said, they're unlicensed, and Marty can speak to however many citations she's given them for being unlicensed and for being unrestrained. But my biggest concern is safety, because they have acted aggressively towards adults and children. They'll growl, they'll run after people. So my biggest concern is that someone is going to get hurt.
Thank you. And just, so you said they're Irish setters. The reports all call them Golden Labs.
Oh,
They're golden retrievers.
Oh, they're golden
Retrievers,
retrievers. Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. All right, anything else from the club?
No, I just want to repeat what Mary said. I've been down there on Saturdays working on the pool in the spring, and the pool gate will be open, and the dogs will just wander over and start barking at you, and just generally, they're not controlled to their property like they're supposed to be here in Longmeadow. And I think while the owners may have made some improvements to their fencing, they can certainly do a better job keeping the dogs on their property. I mean, they have plenty of property.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an issue of not having enough place for the dogs. It's just keeping them on their own property.
I mean, in my mind, the simplest thing as a remedy would be for them to run cable from a couple of the big trees they have on the property, leash those dogs, and put them on the run. Supposedly they've spent some money making the fence higher, but it hasn't worked.
There's still holes in it.
Yeah, so they're getting out constantly.
Marty Lee?
Okay, so, as she said, this is quite a thick file of reports. They're nice to talk to, but that's about as far as it goes. If we can go way back, I think the year 2024, I just ticketed them and talked to them and ticketed them, and they just would never license their dogs. Even though they would say they were going to license their dogs, they would never license their dogs. So I have a couple problems here. So I think by the end of 2024, they did finally license, and they wouldn't pay their tickets, their fines. By the end of 2024, I think they did license the dog, but then all of 2025, they still have not licensed their dog for. And now 2026 is going to be the end of this month that they owe Long Meadow for that. And no matter how many tickets I send, they don't pay them, and they don't license their dogs. So there needs to be some kind of solve on what I can do to enforce, because then it looks like the Long Meadow Police don't care, but we do. We go out, we send tickets. I don't know what else I can do. So I've been out there numerous times. They have 2 Goldens and 1 little dog. So I don't know if the little dog is new, but all 3 are unlicensed. They're in the garage, which I'm all for. They have a dog door. They can go out into the yard. It's fenced. What I'm not for is that they haven't solved the problem. They have a large fenced backyard that is, I don't think it would keep a lot of dogs in. It's falling apart and not very tall, and there's plenty, I walked the whole backyard a couple weeks ago. I mean, they need a new fence. So if the dogs are gonna have access to the backyard, the 2 big, the Goldens that stay in the garage, then they need, if they don't wanna do their whole backyard, if they did some part of it fenced, from the access from the garage, again, even just them, I went out there, I spoke to Mom just to make sure that they would be here at the hearing because of my experience with all the non-paying of the tickets and the not licensing and so I'm really not surprised they're not here tonight. But I did go out there in person and said, you will be at the hearing, and I did say, could you also license the dogs before then? And then very nicely and smiley, yeah, but they're still not licensed. So I guess I'm just trying to give you, this has been years of, so we need some kind of like, I need to be told what I can do to enforce none of the bylaws being adhered to.
And the other thing I was going to say is that it's a tremendous waste of the police officers' time. I mean, they do come out. Every time I call them, they come out, they respond quickly, but they must have better things to do than spend their time returning these dogs back to their owners time and time again.
Yes, it's so much so that the officers know who these dogs are.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's even more than this, because if the police officers are riding down there and they see them, they know where they belong and they just bring them home, and that's not even a complaint. So it's a problem. I will say that one of the dogs, one of the Goldens, is the one that would scare somebody who's not a dog person. I've been around them, they did not bite me, one of them barks loudly, kind of appears to be aggressive. I can just walk past it and say, oh, calm down, and it doesn't bite me or anything. But I'm a dog lover. To somebody who's not okay with that, it looks like this big dog loudly barking and coming at you. So.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just a quick clarification. So it's, with the fencing, it's not a matter of the fencing not being tall enough, it's just the condition of the fence where the dogs are able to get through the fence? Or are they
It's
jumping over the
probably
fence?
everything. It's, the fence is too short, it's kind of like falling over, it's not, they could put a stockade. If they put a 6-foot stockade around their property, the problem would probably be solved. And, at one point, he told me he was spending thousands, I don't see that. At one point, he told me he was spending like $30,000 or something. I don't see evidence of that. And it does not, it appears like they would have the ability to put such a fence in, but he's not here to tell us if I'm wrong, if they don't have the ability. But in my observation of going out there, it looks like they would have the ability to put a 6-foot stockade, at least if they didn't want to do the whole property, put an area
Just for the dogs.
just for the dogs off of the garage.
I mean, there is a fence there, but there's a ton of vegetation, so when limbs and trees fall, the fence gets disturbed. It just needs work.
Yeah, and I'll say, thank you for being here tonight to speak to this, and thank you for obviously exhausting every option before, you got to this stage. And, you all didn't even need to come here tonight, just looking at the police reports for going back 10 years. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me that this could go on for so long, and that there is this level of neglect and this level of disregard for the town's processes, for our rules. The fact that these dogs haven't been licensed for so many years, just something basic like that we expect of every dog owner, that's not even being accomplished, is very concerning. And I will say too that I have concern that no matter what we even order tonight, will they even comply with that? And then, where does that lead us to? Because the track record so far suggests that they probably will not comply with that. And it's really, obviously even more upsetting that they're not even here, where we can even talk to them about this. So, I mean, I don't know if there's much more for you all to say. I think the record speaks for itself here, and I think, we have to figure out what we can do to get this resolved. And so, because I agree that, I think you're all being charitable and saying that, you're worried that nothing bad is going to happen so far, but the fact of how these dogs have already acted is already an issue. It's already, affected folks that are in that area. And yeah, we hope something really bad doesn't happen, but what's happening so far is already bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I have questions, but not on the past. It's more on the future. So if there's no other questions, I think we can close the, Attorney Chapman, what was this portion called?
This would be the evidentiary portion. Mr. Chair, if I may, I just have a couple of brief follow-ups, maybe even just a
Please.
single follow-up. And that is, I think to the animal control officer, do we have a way of identifying the dogs by name or by age? I know at one point, it sounds like the golden retrievers may have very briefly been licensed.
Yes.
Typically, we would have that information because typically people license their dogs. And I've done a lot of these hearings, and this is really a first where that's been such an issue. But anyway, that was my question. Do we have a way that we can refer to the dogs? Is it even possible to identify the golden that's being more aggressive?
So I don't know the name of the little one that I just saw when I was out there. The two Goldens, I could look up the past license from 2024 that we eventually did get him to license. So I could find out the two Goldens' names, but I don't know which one. Again, I don't think either is a dangerous dog, but clearly they are nuisance dogs. And clearly one of them would scare people because it's loud. Like I said, I walk up on their property and walk right past them, but one is just kind of gives like a loud barking at me.
And that one charges at people too,
Yeah.
and
So-
charges at cars.
It's more, yeah. I don't think, I wouldn't qualify it as, I'd qualify it as they're definitely nuisance dogs.
One follow-up I have on that, is it only the Goldens that are the issue, or is the little dog also escaping?
Well, the little dog's not licensed. So part of my thing is how can we as the town enforce people who aren't paying their tickets and aren't licensing? And then secondly, the problem with, enforcing that they do something that these dogs stop leaving their property. The two Goldens, the little one stays in the house, so the little one right now is not leaving the property. And it's not tall, so it's not going over the fence.
Okay, that was my question. Thank
Okay.
you. So, Mr. Chair, to answer your question, someone could make a motion to close the hearing, and if there were a second and a majority vote, we could proceed to the deliberation phase.
All right, thank you. I did have one more question. So I pulled up our dog bylaw, and for the fourth offense of a violation of the dog control statute, the penalty is $500, and that's adds up over time. It's 50, 100, 300, 500. What kind of tickets are we talking about in the past? How much have
They're
you?
they're bylaw violation tickets. So as of right now, I need a way to enforce them.
Right, how much is it? How much?
Oh, how
The
much?
total of how many tickets have you? The total of all the tickets you've given.
I don't know, years of tickets, lots of tickets.
Okay.
Every time it's unlicensed, every time I ticket them for an unlicensed, it is $30 for the unlicensed. The unrestrained, I think, is $25. They get late fees, but
So
that
you-
hasn't been adhered to, it hasn't mattered.
Right, well, but you can, enforcing it.
So I hear what you're saying, you go up in the ticket, so then what do
Yeah.
we do if they don't pay that ticket?
No, well, that's a different issue, but.
Okay.
It is something that, and that may be a Lynn or Attorney Chaplin question, is that something we can lean, I don't know under our statute. But that's, I guess it's not here nor there, that's not gonna solve anything. So if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the, and I forgot the term already, the fact finding, well, we're not closing the hearing, we're closing that portion. So if anybody remembers the term, they can go ahead.
Evidentiary hearing? Yeah.
Evidentiary, jeez.
Yeah, so I'll move to, unless you guys have any questions. Yeah, so I'll close, I'll move to close the evidentiary hearing.
Second.
Anything further?
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Hemaphathy?
Yes.
Ms. Maynard DeWolf?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mrs. Wargo?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Attorney Chaplin, can you, I know you mentioned it briefly, and we have, again, been through this a number of times, but if you could tell us the designations that we can make findings of for the dogs, and also if we have enough information here to do that, because we normally would say the name of the dog. So if you can go ahead.
Absolutely. So I'll read the definitions. I think whether there's enough information is something we'll have to traverse as the board deliberates on whether what's been described fits into either of these definitions. I'll start first with the nuisance dog definition. There's three different ways that a dog can be considered a nuisance dog. One is by excessive barking or other disturbance that's a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity. The second is by excessive barking causing damage or other interference that a reasonable person would find that behavior disruptive to their quiet and peaceful enjoyment. And the third way is a dog that has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or a person, but the threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all of the circumstances. So if the board were to find that any one of those three scenarios was a scenario here, that would be a nuisance dog under the statute. A dangerous dog, a dog can be a dangerous dog one of two ways. First, without justification, the dog attacks a person or domestic animal, causing physical injury or death. And the second way is that a dog behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe poses an unjustified imminent threat of physical injury or death to a person or to a domestic-owned animal. One caveat to what I just read, there are some exceptions, circumstances under which that a dog cannot be found to be dangerous. First, it can't be solely based on the breed. Can't be based solely upon growling or barking. And it can't be based upon a reaction to a person or another animal if the dog's reaction is not grossly disproportionate under one of four enumerated circumstances. And effectively, those reduced to if the dog thought that it was being attacked, if it thought that its offspring was being attacked, or if someone was trespassing upon the property that the dog lives on. I don't think any of those exceptions are here, but that's the board's decision, not mine.
Okay, well, I will speak, so, Andrew and I spoke about this over the weekend. We've had other cases where it's clear that we're talking about a dangerous dog. I don't, based on the definition and what we've heard, I don't think that that's the case here. But I do think that we've heard enough, and certainly have, as Vineet said, 10 years of reports showing that this is, these dogs are a nuisance to the neighbors and to people who are on private property and are being approached by dogs and barked at and made to feel scared, which could be dangerous, but I don't think we're quite, especially with what we've done in the past, I don't think that we're quite there. And also, if we make a nuisance dog finding, there's a lot, we can be much more creative in our approach. The dangerous dog has pretty, and you can move around within them, but there are just certain remedies you can take. So that would be my thinking.
I do have two dog names.
Okay.
I have a portal, Junior and Mino, I think it says here. It just went away. The Wi-Fi's not working that well, but I don't know if that matters to you.
No, that does, that's helpful, thank you. Did you say Mino or Nino?
Hold on, I'm trying to bring it back up.
Okay. Anybody else? Andrew?
I don't know. I agree the classification as a nuisance dog seems appropriate. I think as far as action, I mean, I think to me it's pretty clear that we should either consider making the dog owners construct a fence that's effective, or a leash, or maybe an invisible fence is an option. I think the main question is going to be how do we enforce it, and that's where I'm hoping our attorney can.
Well, we have to make a finding first, and then we can talk about a remedy.
Sure. So I'm in favor of a nuisance dog finding.
I agree. I think a nuisance fits that definition.
All right. Dan, you have anything?
Yeah, so I agree, a nuisance dog as well. I think the attention should be around the fence itself, and candidly speaking, I haven't seen the fence, but it sounds like it's pretty porous, and there's plenty of openings for the three dogs. And I would just also say, just looking at some of the bylaws and the fines, that's discouraging to me that they've just ignored these fines for several years. But I know that's not really what we're talking about at this point in the discussion. So I would say nuisance dog, address the fence issue. I'm not saying they have to get a new fence, but certainly fix the current fence if they can do that for remediation. So that's my.
Did you find the names?
Yes, Junior and Mino.
Mino, okay.
Those are the two Goldens.
Great, thank you.
Is that M-I-N-O?
M-E-N-O.
Oh, M-E-N-O, M as in Michael.
Correct. Is there specific language we need to make in our motion?
No, Mr. Chair, motion to designate the two, well, I'm assuming it's with respect to the golden retrievers. Be a
Oh.
motion to designate them as nuisance dogs.
That's a good point. I don't think we have enough information to make a finding on the new dog. If it does become an issue, I would expect you can make a complaint.
I've never
but-
even seen the new dog,
Okay,
so.
so that's good. So we will make a finding because I don't think we have any information to do that, so.
But the new dog does need to get licensed.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. Yeah, so for the time being, I will move to designate Junior and Mino as nuisance dogs.
Second.
All right, anything further? Please go
Mr.
ahead.
Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Hopperly?
Yes.
Mrs. Vanderwall?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mrs. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the simpler part. Attorney Chaplin, why don't you tell us how we should proceed now?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because the board's designated Mino and Junior as nuisance dogs, that the statute just says that the board shall order remedial measures sufficient to address the issues that the dogs present to the public. So that it's pretty wide open. I can address the two questions that have come up along the way relative to enforcement. There are multiple ways to enforce these, but technically a violation of this statute and an order under this statute is a criminal violation. The criminal courts generally are not, are not the best way I find to enforce these, although I've done it. Typically, what we would do would be a civil action, a civil enforcement action seeking an injunction that could be punishable by contempt. And in the context of that civil action, if it comes to that, which it may in this case, given the history here, we could also seek payment of the fines as part of that action. That's not something we typically do to enforce fines that go unpaid, but here where we have overlap with the fines as well as with the order that the board's about to make under section 157, we can combine that into one case, and that would be my recommendation if we get to that point.
All right, so Marty Lee, on that second point, it's keep ticketing, keep enforcing, and there are remedies that will go beyond you just going over there or sending the police over there. So keep logging everything that you do, and then that's why we have a law firm on retainer if we need it. So we have had a nuisance dog finding before, and I think what we ordered was on fencing. So there was a dog that was barking at a neighbor's house. You remember this? And we ordered to raise the fence, but the dog ended up moving, so it didn't matter. But and then
It
we
was
had,
Franklin Road, I believe.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And then we also had,
You have multiple.
and we had the dog that was running out, that we had the double locking system.
Franklin, yeah.
That was Franklin? Oh, okay. There was another dog that was barking over the back fence. Yeah.
Yes,
By my dog.
yes, yes.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
can't
they're,
remember the street, but I know the dog.
Albemarle, okay. Yeah, so so for nuisance, we can really do whatever we think is going to help with the problem. And
I
From
would
what-
recommend a stockade, a 6-foot stockade, because a chain link, they can get their paws and crawl. But just a stockade, I don't see these dogs are kind of heavy. I don't see them going over a 6-foot stockade. So I would like to see that they would have to fence in an area for the dogs, if not the whole backyard, with a 6-foot stockade.
I think that. from what
By
we-
a fencing company,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, from what we've heard, I think that it's, ordering patching the fence is not is not going to work and is also adding a lot more work for you. And if it's not done correctly, we're back in the same position. I was looking at our bylaws before. Is there a certain area that is, oh, it's a dog exercise area, so that's if we had a dog park. So I don't know if we have a minimum area that we need for a dog, but I think that whatever they choose to do, that makes sense to me, to have prescribe the type of fence, the height. They have, I looked it up, they have 1.38 acres, so they have plenty of room to do this. And so they can make plenty of room for the dogs and keep the yacht club safe, and free from being bothered by neighboring dogs. So now this is, I hate these dog hearings, I wish we didn't have to do them, but they are an important part of what we do. And so I think that that's a perfectly reasonable starting point, and if there's anything else that people think we need to add, we can. But we also, every time we have these hearings, we also say, if it doesn't work, you can come back to us, because we want to make sure that it does work. And and you mentioned putting the runs for the dogs. I don't think that is, I don't like those. I think that is not good for the dog, and it probably wouldn't be good for the yacht club either, because a dog that is out there for a long time may be barking more, and so I don't think that that's a good solution, but luckily there is enough room to have a good solution. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I think the 6-foot stockade fence would be fine. You might want to consider putting some kind of a time constraint on that, because,
Absolutely.
you know, to say that they need to put up a 6-foot stockade fence with no time frame on it,
Oh, no,
how,
yeah.
you know?
No, we will definitely do that, absolutely. And we have in the past findings we've had, we have given even certain milestones. But I think this is more straightforward than some we've had, at least.
Is there any value in saying until the fence is constructed that they must be leashed? And
Sure.
to remain on their property? And also, obviously, the size, if cost is a concern, obviously, they choose the size of the enclosure. You know, what we will order is basically the dogs must remain in the enclosure however large you choose to make it.
Right. And then I think, and I mentioned I had some questions about the future and possibilities, because if before the fence is up, if things are not being enforced, do you have the capability of taking the dogs in and holding them until there is some movement, or until they've fulfilled the order, if it comes to that?
Well, our strays go to Porter Road Pet Kennels in East Long Meadow. So if we were to take the dogs, which I don't know if we could legally do that, but that would be a boarding fee daily. So who would be responsible for that?
Well, the owner, and under the bylaw, you can take possession of a dog, and then, and under 127.12, the owner cannot reclaim the dog until they've acknowledged as the owner, undertaken responsibility, and paid the expense for maintaining the dog in confinement. So this is all, this is covered, so.
And proof of licensing.
Right, yes, we can absolutely put that on. I was just trying to look if you could confine dogs that are on other property. Yeah, and actually, the 127.10 is catching dogs, and that is if the dog is on somebody else's yard.
Yes.
But then you notify the licensed owner of the dog, which we don't have.
Yeah, so that's what I do
Yeah.
daily, and those go
Yeah.
to Porter Road. Well, not daily, but often.
Attorney Chaplin, can we order, even if it's not in our bylaws, can we order that if the dog gets out and it's not, the fence has not been put up, that the dog is boarded until licensed and the fence is put up?
Yes. I'm looking through this. I'm looking through the state statutes now. There is a statute where a dog who's in violation can be seized by the animal control officer. I was trying to find it while we were here, but I've certainly come across it. So the answer is yes.
Although, Josh, I'm a little bit concerned that if you made it that stringent now at a time when you literally cannot construct a fence now, it would be better probably to say at a certain date, like after this, in the spring or summer. And
Sure,
then until
yeah.
then, currently, like keep the dog restrained or inside until the fence is constructed. And if it's not constructed by a certain time, then the dog is boarded.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm with you
Because right now it's impossible for them to.
I'm
build
with
a
you, because
fence.
I'm thinking, oh, gosh, are they
We don't
gonna
want it to
get
come to
boarded
that.
until May? You know, I'd hate to
it.
see that put in a little cage until May.
What I'm thinking is, if this gets sent out and is just ignored, even for the next,
Then it's a civil case.
even for the next month, while the yacht club is trying to get things set up, I'm just thinking worst case scenario, but like I said, I love dogs, I don't want to ever separate an owner from the dog, but I do want people to do the right thing. So we can be reasonable, but I don't know if the leashing the dog in the meantime is going to be enforced, and that's what I'm worried about.
I think that that's the least we can do, and that if they don't comply, then that's clearly another infraction, essentially.
Yeah.
But at this point, I think unless you say the dog cannot go outside, unless it's on a leash. I mean, basically, I think that the immediate action is to make sure that dogs are restrained so that they don't go onto the property. And then they have to build a fence when they're able.
Yeah, I mean, the fence, we might have a thaw this week where everything's fine in a week. I mean, it might be hard to lock up a fence company, but this has been 10 years. I don't expect it to be done tomorrow, but we don't want to give, and pardon the pun, we don't want to give too great of a leash here. So why don't we start talking through particulars of what we want? It's March 2nd, and I imagine when does your season really start?
Well, we're down there all year long. I mean, we have events all year long, so
Okay.
the dogs, the dogs come over to take part. But I mean, our heavy season starts in May.
Okay. I would think that, so it starts in May, if we say 30 days from now to construct the fence, and in the interim, until the fence is up, leash the dogs outside, and then we can put on any other contingencies we want. The dogs must be licensed,
The fines have to be paid.
fines paid, although we don't know how much, I would like to know how much the fines are, because it could be
Well, I think that, so we'd have to look back. I think after hounding them all of 2024, they took care of and licensed, but then now 2025, we've had to start over, so now they're not licensed.
Okay. Well, I'm not, maybe the rest of the board feels differently. I don't feel as concerned with the past fines, but certainly going forward, I think you can use the teeth of the statute or the bylaw to make it more worrisome to ignore the fines, but.
I think we could always, couldn't we make it contingent that, we're willing to forego the fines if they want to put that towards erecting the fence within the time we say, and then, if violations continue, then the fines. That's we're kind of goodwill that we're saying we want to make sure the dogs are kept safe in the fencing. License them, put the fence up. I mean, I don't know how much the fines are for 2025. I'm not sure what the amount of money we're talking about, but that way it's not us giving up, us saying, oh, it's okay to just not pay your fines when you're fined by the town. But in this case, it sounds like 6-foot stockade fence is not going to be a cheap purchase for the owner. So just, I don't know if we could do that.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, The fines are probably not the same cost as the fence, but that's
Yeah,
a
the
beautiful
fines
house.
are not that much, because we're just talking, please license your dog, here's an unlicensed fine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
$30, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the big deal, but I do wanna know how to like, okay, they need to keep licensing, now they got a new one.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we have an attorney here to tell us what we can do as far as a plan of action to enforce getting a fence up.
Yeah.
Well, remember that first time is $30. Really, it's, any violation is a $50 fine. Second one is 100, then it's 300, then it's 500. That can add up
I
very
think-
quickly.
Yeah, I think we have to remind them of that, and then that way,
Okay.
to your point, moving forward, there's probably, now that, I think we need to just make it clear that not paying the fines is not acceptable moving forward, that we need them to comply with what we're issuing, and moving forward.
Yes.
If you don't, the fines will be there, and we will enforce that.
And maybe in your wording, you said something about a month from now, I mean, I'm all for that, but maybe even that, I don't know, that there be proof of obtaining a fence company, you know, because I don't know what the fence company's gonna say. I'm not sure if they're gonna say we can't come out this month. I don't know what they're gonna say as far as, because of the weather right now.
Well, and, you know,
But proof that they've actually reached out and hired one.
and when we do these,
be-
you're enforcing our order. So
Right.
you have some discretion.
So
over it.
I'd like that wording of that proof that they've hired a professional fence company that this is going to go forward.
Yeah, that's fine.
soon.
Yeah.
I mean, hire a company and that shouldn't be 30 days. I mean, that could be, it takes probably a bit to get quotes, but if that's 15 days to get a quote or to get a contract in place, maybe that's aggressive, but 20 days and then 10 days after that, you can start checking in and seeing, is this work being done? If not, then we can, I don't know what we want to do after that.
I honestly don't think
Come back to
anything's
here.
gonna happen until you make it clear that if it's not complied with, that there will be civil action.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to tell them
Yes.
at any point along the line, like, that has to be an important part of this. There's no, yeah.
Attorney Chapman, what does that entail, the civil action to enforce the fines?
And the
It's a-
fence, and,
Oh, it's the same, it'd be the same lawsuit. So it'd be basically, we'd file a civil lawsuit against them in the district court. They'd be served either by sheriff or by constable. It would be accompanied by a motion for a preliminary injunction. They'd be dragged into court in front of a judge. If we typically get the injunction, I've never had a case where we don't. And if they don't comply with that, we bring a complaint for contempt, and they could possibly be put in jail or sanctioned by the court.
And, thank you. So I think that, I don't think it's realistic to expect them to be able to get a fence built in a month. I mean, I think, at least from my experience, you know, if you're going to get a fence built in the spring, you're paying for it and everything last year. I think best case scenario, probably they're gonna get a fence built by the end of the summer if they can get this all together. So I think that's like a more realistic time frame to
I'm fence
expect.
shopping right now, it's not that long.
Okay.
but it can be, I agree
Yeah,
with Neith, actually, it could take longer than one thinks. But that's why I think that's important that we say that they have to be restrained when anytime they're outside.
Yeah, so I think that there's maybe a few ways to kind of like, to break this down, is to give like maybe a longer time frame for when the fence actually needs to be built, but then saying that a contract needs to be in place, you know, maybe within the next month.
Sure.
Obviously, between now and when that fence is built, the dog needs to be restrained on their property. And then I do think with that restraint, you know, with that clause there, that maybe after 2 months, if we're still having this issue where you're still having to go ticket, that at that point you can seize the dog. And I think that should be in there. And then also we have something in there about the license and say that these dogs, all 3 dogs actually, need to be licensed by the end of March or something, you know?
I think that this is just giving too much, I think. It is possible to, I guess it depends how big of an area they're getting fenced, but this is the yacht club potentially losing another summer to having, these dogs.
Well, if the dogs are restrained, then it's,
I don't think they will be, from what we've seen from the police logs.
well, that's where he's saying that they can be taken essentially, if they're not actually restrained.
What about I don't know, what about a pen off of their garage? They have a garage right now. I don't want the dogs to be outside 24/7. They have a garage, they have a dog door. The garage is heated. What if they had to put a pen off of the garage? The dogs go out into the pen until they get the fence up. I mean, I don't know.
You can get those.
I mean, that's up to them. They can do that at any point, you know, that's a great option for them if they want to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's too bad they're not here, so I don't know. But I agree with you on a way to keep them restrained.
A pen would count as being restrained.
Exactly.
So it's the same.
A fence company, if they could just get somebody out there to even put even a small amount of fencing for now and then work on the fencing. I wouldn't like to put to the end of the summer, because if there is a circumstance where a fence company can't do it, we could always get an exception, but I'd rather start with the shorter time frame, maybe May 1st.
Why don't we say, I was gonna say May 1st or June 1st.
I think May
May
1st, because
1st
then
is
they can
fine.
come back to us, to your point, and ask for an extension. If they can prove that they've
If
engaged
they can
with
prove
the
that they've
fence company,
actually
and it's
tried to
their
obtain the
timeline.
fence
Yep.
company.
Yep.
And
So-
maybe the fence will be up.
So that we could do fence by May 1st, contract by the end of this month or in a couple weeks. either
Yes.
Yep.
Something like that.
License.
A license, I think dog license, do they have to be licensed by the end of March?
Yes.
Is that- Okay, so then they need to just comply and just have all 3 dogs licensed by the end of March. And then, in the meantime, the dogs just need to be restrained on their property.
Attorney Chaplin, you see these all the time. Is there anything you think that we may have not covered?
I think that's a pretty comprehensive order.
6-foot stockade.
Right.
I don't know if you put that in.
And Mary, anything that you think that, anything else you'd like to hear from us, or anything else we haven't thought of?
No, that sounds like, a good plan. Hopefully it can be enforced, or I guess the alternative then, if it isn't, is to take the civil action.
I hope for everyone's sake, and the dogs and the yacht club, that we can come to a solution. These are luckily not dangerous dogs, but we don't want anyone feeling threatened, and we don't want anything to happen, as Vineet was saying earlier. That's obviously, we never want that on our conscience, so hope that we can, I hope this is a good solution. I know it's not easy, but that's, everyone has the right to enjoy their property, so. All right, Vineet, you want to move?
Sure. So I will move that the following remedial actions are designated to Junior and Mino, that a 6-foot stockade style fence be constructed by May 1st, 2026, that a contract with a fence company be executed or entered into by March 20th, 2026, that the dog from this day forward that the dogs from this day forward be restrained on the property, and that that Junior and Mino and the 3rd dog be licensed with the town of Longmeadow by the end of March 2026.
Second.
And that the consequences, would that be put in the letter to him? So it's not,
Yes, so, and then, do you want to send that letter?
well, that was my next question. How do we know that, could this
How'd
go
they
out
get-
certified mail, something that they have to sign for it, so
I
that we
think-
know that they've gotten this order?
I
so
think,
that-
So,
yeah,
I don't-
there'll be an order, right, Attorney Chaplin, that gets sent to them?
That's correct. I'll work with the town manager's office to put that together in the next couple days.
Okay,
So I don't
great.
know if
And-
the civil action would go in the order, but it would be, we should have it in the letter, absolutely.
Something so that when they get this letter, it just doesn't hit the counter, so that they know that, this is different, this is, your dog's.
Absolutely. So, Attorney Chaplin, and then additionally, that the order include an explanation that a violation of the order may result in a civil action being brought by the town of Long Meadow against them.
Absolutely, happy to include that.
Thank you.
And just one point of clarification on the stockade fence, just so it's clear, completely surrounding the area. So we don't want to, it's not just between here and the yacht
To
club,
enclose
it's
the dogs.
to enclose the space for dogs. yes.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, to amend that, the fence clause, that the 6-foot style stockade fence be enclosed to restrain the dogs on the property.
Second.
Lynn?
Peggy just pointed out that we have sent 2 certified mail to the dog owners, and they've both come back, not received, not collected, so.
Okay.
We could send it certified and regular mail. That's unfortunately the sort of operating procedure we use with folks who don't claim their certified mail.
Okay, do we have a second?
I could hand deliver one with an officer too.
Sure.
That sounds
Even
good.
better.
Yeah.
It's been seconded.
Okay. Anything further? Nothing? Roll call?
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Montague?
Yes.
Ms. Maynard Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Ms. Marco?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Attorney Chaplin, we appreciate it. Oh, Andrew, we're just going to close the public hearing.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Montague?
Yes.
Ms. Maynard Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mrs. Marco?
Sorry.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Will I get a copy of that order?
Yes.
And I think I sent it to you, Joshua, the address, because the first notice of the meeting, you sent it
Oh.
to the PVYC at our street address, which was my mistake.
Right.
So,
I think Mike is on that. Oh, you have that?
yes,
email?
Mike Barberry, yes.
Yeah,
So just make sure it goes to the PO box.
Yep.
That way I'll get it.
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, we can send it to you by email as well.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay.
Both, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Okay. Under presentations and guest speakers, we have Fuss and O'Neill redundant tank and interconnection study with Enfield.
Can you hear me, Mike?
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Trying to figure out why my video is not working.
Well, let me introduce you, Mike, and I can start to give some background on the project while you figure that out. So, you guys might know that a couple of years back we did the water pipe age study, and we had Time Bond do that study a few years back as a sort of extension of that project. We also did a redundant tank study, and Time Bond was the consultant we hired for that. In the midst of that, we had a pretty significant water main break in Springfield. You might remember 2023 in the fall. There had been some historic studies that showed vulnerabilities in the system. I think Time Bond was actually a consultant in 2007 or 12, I can't remember. So we hired AECOM to do a interconnection study with the town of Enfield. We currently have a temporary interconnection agreement with them with a hydrant-to-hydrant connection with a hose. It's not very formal in the case of emergencies. As we've sort of narrowed down the consultants we've used recently, we've been relying on Fuss and O'Neill more, and we decided to, invite them in and have them kind of do like a overhead view of both studies, kind of a peer review, and to kind of give just a synopsis of what the findings of that were, so that you guys could give some recommendations to me with next steps or no steps in terms of the findings. So, if that's cool, that's about the gist of it, Mike. I can turn it over to you.
Great. I have like 3 slides that just have some maps and figures, some takeaways on them. I don't know if they get shared automatically.
We have them, but it wasn't going to the agenda.
They were sent over to Mike earlier.
We had problems with that on the agenda, so we.
So we'll put it up now, and we can add it to the agenda whenever we can
Is it?
get that figured out.
Yes.
Yep, that's it.
I can explain it. It's just a visual aid. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I have a very brief presentation. Thank you, Sean, for the intro. So, Fuss & O'Neill has been doing a lot of water work on the Longmeadow water system, and as such, we were asked to do a peer review on 2 studies, one by AECOM and one by Time Bond, that are looking at essentially your water sources and the way you store and use your water. So one of them was an analysis for your existing tank and future tank needs to store your water. The other one was a interconnect for Enfield, Connecticut, which is run by Connecticut Water Company. So in short, I want to say up front that the peer review yielded that the engineering was solid. Both AECOM and Time Bond did a good job in their analysis. We agreed with the engineering. We had input on costs and recommendations on some of the options that came out of these studies. So jumping right in, the tank study is the first one to discuss. I put on the slides, if you have them in front of you, just the very basic takeaways, which are your storage tank in your system serves 3 functions. It provides you buffer capacity during peak demand in morning and at night. It provides water pressure to your system, and it provides extra storage for fire suppression, firefighting, which uses a lot of water very quickly. So your tank is from 1964. It is approaching the end of its useful life. It does get regularly inspected and invested in. We recommend that continues, that you continue inspections and investing smart money to keep it maintained. But essentially, you've got, and this is not an exact number, another decade of use out of your tank. This tank's going to be approaching 65 years old, and you should start planning for a new one. The major question that this study asked is, do we have the appropriate amount of storage? By a formula used by the Waterworks Association, on paper, Longmeadow is actually slightly deficient in storage. However, when compared with historical records and also what the water model tells us, is that you actually don't have a problem where you've had too little storage. It is a benchmark number. Questions the study asked were, do we need a bigger tank? And do we need more than one tank? And the very basic conclusions are that while there are some issues with the size of the tank, they are not pronounced enough to require an investment in larger amounts of storage at this location. There would be a benefit to a second tank at a second location. Generally, the east side of town has hills, and hills are the thing that greatly affect water pressure. Less pressure at the top of the hill, more pressure at the bottom of the hill. A second tank at a second location could help with things like water age and low pressure. But that would require finding a suitable site, owning a suitable site, constructing a tank, and possibly a pressure zone to service that area at a higher pressure. Those are significant investments. And the feedback is that the pressure and water age issues have not caused major issues in your system. So the very basic takeaway is that we don't think that you need a second tank, and we don't think you need to upsize the tank at your current location. The current location is very tight. To build a second tank of the same size there while keeping the existing in service will be somewhat of a challenge. But to build a second or a larger tank and keep that in service would be more of a challenge, and we just don't think the benefits are there. The report went over the costs included. We did raise those costs. We included design, construction oversight. We've also accounted for the future cost of money, interest, borrowing, future cost of labor and equipment. And very basically, we think that the town should start saving around $10 million for a tank replacement sometime in the future. Again, you have a little bit of runway. This is in line with the DPW trying to ensure that the rates are sustainable and that there is appropriate amounts of money in the enterprise fund for projects such as this. That are the basic conclusions on the tank study. I can either pause there for questions, or we can do questions at the end.
Does anyone want to hear the rest, or start with the storage tank questions? Why don't you finish up, or keep going to the interconnect, and we'll talk.
Great. I have another slide that is for the Enfield Water Connect. So it is important to understand, as Sean pointed out, that all of your water in Long Meadow comes from one source, which is Springfield Water and Sewer Commission. Your water travels in 2 pipelines underneath Forest Park and enters the major pump station at Magawiska and Forest Glen. From there, it's pumped to the tank. So while you have a large amount of water available to you, the major transmission break in 2024 did bring to light redundancy, resiliencies, and diversification of your water source, and the DPW has studied these. AECOM did a modeling scenario for connecting to Enfield. So your neighbors to the south, Enfield, Connecticut, have a water system in close proximity to yours. We used the water model to replicate what flows we could get from Enfield, and the study showed that there are 3 locations that are viable. In all 3 locations, you would need to pump water from Enfield into your system. But they are 3 very viable locations, and they are all along Maple Street. I will show those to you on a map in a second. Each connection is able to provide a significant portion of your average daily demand. So how much water you use on an average day, each connection is theoretically capable of supplying that volume of water. I say theoretically because when you move a lot of water on a different pathway, there may be some pipeline upgrades associated with that. So we looked at all 3 locations, and together with the Public Works Department, we think that Shaker Road, where it meets Enfield, would be the best location for this work. We estimate that design, permitting, and construction would be about $2.6 million, which is significantly cheaper than building a second tank somewhere. The benefits of this would be definitely emergency response. If anything were to happen to the SWSC water supply, either physical or contamination or whatever it may be, you would have a permanent and appropriate connection to a different system to keep you in water. The challenges associated with this are that it is a different state. We would have to permit this both in Massachusetts and in Connecticut. I put regulatory on here because the Connecticut water system does have detectable limits of PFAS. They are currently in compliance with PFAS regulations, but in the near future, PFAS regulations may be going down. The limits may be going down, and they could not be in violation they could not be in compliance in the future. And then intermunicipal agreements. At what rate would you purchase this water? When would the water turn on? Things like that. But from an engineering standpoint, we have 3 viable locations. We've picked one that we like, and we are estimating $2.6 million to fund this project. The remaining 2 slides are just maps. So again, I think you guys have access to seeing these. What I've done is I've just taken the southern portion of your distribution system, and obviously the pipes line up with the roadways so you can get a familiar sense of Longmeadow. I have clipped in the bottom right in the white space a zoomed in view of Maple Street in the vicinity of Shaker Road, and I've circled 1, 2, and 3 as the possible locations, which is Shaker Road, a cross-country location off Maple Street, and then George Washington. I'll just skip to the last slide. The last slide is simply a Google Street View of Shaker Road at the town line. I've obviously chosen to look into Longmeadow with these beautiful trees. You can see the 2 different colored hydrants in that system representing the 2 different color systems. And you can see a nice strip of grass on the right where the red hydrant is by the blue car, and you can see plenty of room on the left. And we like this because this station would have an infrastructure to it, right? So there would be a physical connection under the ground, but we would have a control cabinet, electrical to it, meter and telemetry. So there would be a structure, and this location would be very suitable to suit that structure off to the side of the road, somewhere near the town line. I'm going to stop there. I wanted to keep it brief this time and allow you time for questions. So thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you, Mike. I have some questions first on the storage tank. So when a new tank is being built, you keep the old one, we need water, so we'd keep the old one running, and you put it up next to it, I presume. Do you have to decommission the old one, or can it be used for emergencies, or does that not make sense to keep the water just sitting there?
Yeah, that's a great question. We would want to decommission it. One of the problems we have with storing water is you can often store too much water, and if you don't use it, in layman's terms, it can go stale. You have to keep the chlorine residual up. You get what we call water age issues. And so having too much storage, especially in one location, right? Because it would be a different story if they were in two locations and the demand was sort of spread out. But too much storage in one location can cause problems. It would also, to be frank with you, become a money pit. To keep drinkable water in that 1964 tank for any prolonged period after you construct a new one, in my professional opinion, would be throwing good money after that.
Okay. Thank you. And then on the interconnection, and this, I don't know if this, you or Sean, the temporary solution we have, which is just, is it running the hose between those two hydrants? And I assume that you cannot service the whole town with that, okay. And this is, so in our history, this came up in 2024, there was the service issue in Springfield. Did that affect I know there was more brown water in my part of town.
It affected our pressure. We kept some
Pressure,
water flowing,
okay.
yes. Yeah.
So if that had gone on for longer,
We would have a problem.
we couldn't have filled up our tank at all?
Yeah.
Okay. And,
Yeah.
and how often has that happened in our 100-year history?
So I haven't gone through all the dates there's been a problem. I think the thing to keep in mind, and you could look up what happened in Waterbury this winter, is that you have, I don't know, I think 25% of Springfield's pipes are over 100 years old. And in the case of that break, it was not even the pipe, it was a culvert that collapsed and then broke the pipe. There's gonna be unforeseen events that come in our future as all municipalities deal with aging infrastructure. So this is would be just an insurance policy for something that's unforeseen.
So how are Enfield's pipes?
I don't know, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're in also in bad situations.
I don't remember
But
how many, I don't think we have 25% 100-year-old pipes, but we're not far behind.
I'm sure they have their own issues, I
Yeah.
think and there's a chance that we would end up giving Enfield water and have to meter it and have an agreement with Springfield to do so if they had a break. I mean, this stuff happens. I oversaw an interconnection in between Lennox and Pittsfield, and it was routine that we would be giving each other water at different times because it happened. They would lose pressure. They had multiple reservoirs, but we would still have to feed them because we had better pressure to give portions of their town. And we had droughts where our reservoir couldn't maintain enough level and we would have to pull from them. So it is a benefit. There is a cost to it, obviously, but compared to another tank, which doesn't really solve all the problems, I think it's just something to really consider long-term.
What is Enfield's water source?
Oh, God. They have, is it wells? I can't remember. They might have more than one water source, too. I can't remember. Do you remember, Mike?
It's groundwater,
Yeah.
based on the PFAS ratings, right?
Yeah, so that would really be, we don't want to connect to a place that's going to have its own issues and that won't be able to
So we are
service us.
already, and we have used it, just for some background. And I do think that to consider if this was to move forward, it would be only if we had a major problem in Springfield and we couldn't continue. And we turned that on for a couple days until that problem was fixed. I don't think you'd be wanting to use this for your primary source of water.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of money for a worst-case scenario.
That's right.
But sometimes you got to plan for that. I get that. But yeah, the second tank, I don't even, that seems, there's such a multitude of problems with us getting there beyond just the money. I'm glad we studied it. I'm glad we now have a peer review saying it's not a good idea. But interconnection is, I can see the utility of it. I can see that certainly there's some sense to it, but it seems with the way our budget is and
Sure.
with the other work we need in our town, it's hard to stomach, but this has been very helpful. So thank you, Mike.
Can I get a question?
Go ahead.
Sean, so it sounds like this would be mutually beneficial potentially for Enfield and Longmeadow. Have you talked to anyone in Enfield that's interested in doing this? And if they are, would the cost be split? It would like
So we did talk to them. We had to, as a part of the feasibility study, we had to have discussions with them to make sure they knew that this was something we were interested in maybe, and also get an idea of their flows. And so they definitely were interested. Whether they'd foot the bill for half, I don't think so. I don't know. My guess is that they have enough source. It would be a rare thing that they would need.
So they don't think they need this as badly as we do?
And that's a little bit of a guess on my part. I certainly will reach out and see if they're interested in funding some portion.
Because I
of it.
guess if they have their own groundwater, they're not at the mercy of some problem outside of their
They
town.
would be at the mercy of pressure. I think that would be the what we'd be able to help them with in that section of town. But I do think they have probably enough gallons.
And if we were helping them out with pressure, how does that affect our pressure?
Well, we would be able to open up the our valve from Springfield to push more pressure through to aid them, depending on the time of year and what's going on.
Can we upcharge, get a little?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so I can reach out and ask just to see if they're interested in covering a portion of it. I think it's worth it. You might also consider, and this is just, it's all on you guys, considering funding the engineering in case there was a grant that became available at some point to do that work, or in case we were running a new main by it. It'd be just something to consider having. But again, this is just my department doing its due diligence in terms of saying, do you have an issue maybe, and this is something you need to know.
How are our pipes in that area? Oh, well, I guess we have the color coding already. So the red is the real old stuff.
Red is bad.
Yeah.
Green and blue are good.
So there's a green one right off
Number 1.
Shaker. Yeah, and then, so that main would not be done anytime soon.
Probably not.
It is asbestos cement, but green probably means it has a lack of break history, right? So if it hasn't broken, it's green, but it is asbestos cement pipe. I have looked at this. I think from an engineering point of view, I do like location 1. If you're looking in the lower right, there's a brand new piece of 10-inch ductile, which could be extended to meet the blue line where number 3 is. You would have 2 major connection points to feed Shaker Road and Maple out to Route 5. So you would be strengthening sort of the major arteries of your system. So I like the thought that went into it, and we gave kudos to the town and the original engineer for coming up with that design, because there is some strong piping networks there. It's a good spot for this. Again, I'm just talking about the engineering and the pipes and the properties.
Great, thank you. I'm Mike or Sean. So if we start, if we fund this new water tank, how long does that project take from beginning to end?
You mean to build it?
Yeah, to build it.
I think it would be, beginning to end, I think it could be a 2-year project, because you have to procure the type of tank you want, you have to select it, you have to get it manufactured, and then you have to install it, disinfect it, put it into operation and make sure it's working well. So I would conservatively say it's a 2-year process. We did a tank in Belchertown, it took 1 year.
Okay.
And again, we're not saying we have to put a new tank in right now. We're just saying in the out years, there's work. And we are maintaining the one we have, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then Mike, when you're saying that our current tank is ending, its lifespan here, just so that it's very clear for everyone, what would we expect to start happening when it's 10 years out or so that with this tank?
Well, when will we know when we're at our 10 years?
It will cost you money to keep this tank in service, and I recommend that you do that. So that would be like an annual or every other year. You can send a submersible robot into the tank to look at the seams, to look if there's spots of rust and things like that. Your sanitary survey, which is like the rules for running a water system, requires you to do that so often. Towards the end of the tank's life, you could do it more often than what is required. What you'll see is you'll see rust. You will see leaks. Pinhole leaks, you'll see corrosion. You'll see corrosion at the seams where the bolts are, corrosion at the base where the concrete is bolted to the metal tank. It can start to affect the water quality at points. If corrosion and rust builds up in the tank, some of that gets sucked into the system. But what you think would happen to an old thing full of water that is made out of metal, that's what happens. What we do is we clean it. Like, it's something as simple as pressure cleaning it to try to knock the corrosion off. We paint it, we seal it, we drain it, we scrub it. Those are all the normal activities. It is beautifully simplistic.
And we're already doing those things, and we just put a mixer in as a, and cleaned it, I think, a year ago, so just so everyone knows.
How long would the interconnection permit, or everything take?
I think the permit would probably take longer than construction. What do you think, Mike?
Correct. Permitting will take longer than design. It's not the world's most terrible permitting, but I have a feeling that's probably it could be interbasin transfer, which is a long permitting process, like a year. I'm not totally positive it is. I need to know like what water basin their source would be in. I'm not an expert on Enfield's system. But the design of that system could take 6 to 8 months. The construction of it, 1 season. Permitting could be a year.
And outside the 2.6 million for that, ongoing costs after that, what are we looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So everything we build has some level of maintenance. So for this interconnection, you could think of it like a water pump station. So it's going to have pumps, and those pumps will need maintenance. There's plenty of service companies out there that will come in and service your pumps once a year, do a flow test, things like that. There is a cost of telemetry. So a lot of times, like the alarms and things that go to Sean and Mike Spear in their phones, like that's a service. You add it to your other telemetry, just like a cell phone bill. You know, when you build a structure that takes electricity and pumps, you can't let it sit forever. You need to just have periodic maintenance. But I would not call it complex or onerous. I would just call it necessary maintenance.
Thank you. So I will say that I think if we do think that this storage tank needs to be replaced, then we need a new storage tank. And this is, thanks to you all, has been identified well enough in advance, then we should start planning for this and how we can replace this water tank a decade down the road. Because, I think we've been in a habit here of going from crisis to crisis, and here is an actual opportunity for us to think in the long term and plan for this. So that's what I would be in favor of doing that. The interconnection study, I think I'd have to give more thought to that. I think if, Sean, as you mentioned, that there are opportunities for grants to fund some of this, I would obviously be more in favor of doing so, but that is something that I'd want to put more thought into, give more thought to. But I think in terms of the next water storage tank, that is something that we should start planning for.
And if, the grant's a good point. I know we'd like to have engineering done in case grants come up, but if you do identify some grants and then we get the engineering,
Sure.
we don't want to do engineering just in case. But so this has got me thinking of all sorts of terrible scenarios. If our water tank fails or we are unable to pressurize, et cetera, the interconnection sounds like that wouldn't save us. We still need that tank to
No.
pressurize our town.
So we wouldn't have the pressure. So yeah, we wouldn't have the pressure, but we'd get some pressure if there was water turned on that side of town. But we'd have
Okay.
water mixing, I assume, if we had both. But the majority of the pressure comes from, we can open a valve in our Springfield connection and put more pressure through the system if we have to. That's what we did with the fire that was at, I forget the name of the place, I wasn't here then.
Yeah, the shops,
Our-
where the Maple
Yeah.
Center.
Um,
shop.
Oh, yeah.
That's not always great, though. Obviously, you blow pipes out, and we have some old pipes, but yeah.
All right. So we got to take care of our tank, but
Yes.
yeah, absolutely, think ahead. So this is why we do these studies, so that's great. All right. Anything else on Professor O'Neill or Sean? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, we
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, where were we? Update on the fiscal year 2027 budget.
Thanks. I covered this primarily in my town manager report. So just again, the school committee has voted on their budget. The superintendent will be at your March 9th meeting to present the school department budget. And then on March 23rd, I will present the overall town budget.
Great. All right, moving on to new business. We have fiscal year 2027 water and sewer rates. Ian, I like the stash.
Fancy yourself a little bit.
All right, whoever is presenting, please go ahead.
Members of the board, good evening. I hope to have a quick presentation for you today. I realize there's a couple slides in here, but just in terms of next steps, this is going to be part of a three presentation event for the board, where this first set of slides is going to go over just a brief overview of what the current budget looks like and an idea for the overall water sewer rates. I realize that the board might have different ideas about what they want to see for the rates. I'm hoping to get from the board an idea of changes to this in terms of potential rates, a range of rates, and what they want to see in terms of what gets funded. So overall, this presentation will go over what we currently have as a proposal, and then project what the out years will be in terms of borrowings. So the first slide is looking at the FY27 water budget currently. I would like to highlight a couple things. So notably, Springfield purchase of water, this is under our Springfield sewer and water agreement. This represents $357,000 increase in our expense line, or 29% of the total increase of the water enterprise budget. Following that is property related services. This is valve work. This represents $141,000 increase, or about 11% of the total ask. And then further, another $380,000 within the debt service line for water projects regarding the water meters and the water mains that were voted at the November town meeting. This represents about 31% of the total increase. The next slide is from the tie and bond presentation on March 24th of last year. As you might recall, tie and bond recommended a slew of different scenarios for us in terms of maintaining our existing rate structure, and also recommended both changes for our fixed and our variable rates. As you can see below, they recommended a 22, 24, and 22 for the next 3 years. Moving to what we actually did on the next slide. Given the fact that the board might remember that we had a delay in setting our rates, we had to do a larger increase to make up the difference in that revenue that was missed for Q1. And that was captured in the FY26 rate when we chose to do a increase in the fixed rates proportionately for the higher or the larger valves, so the 1 through 3 inch, and then a commensurate increase in the residential variable rates. Currently, the proposal represents a 13% increase in both the fixed and variable rates for water. The reason it's at 13% is this represents 4 quarters of the current rate. If the board were to accept the rates by the end of March, these rates would take effect for Q1 of 27, which would allow residents to have their rate known before their usage is used. I highlighted the debt service in the FY27 actual water budget. The next slide shows what that represents. So this slide looks at our current borrowing capacity for the water enterprise fund. As you can see, this looks at the out years for the next 4 to 5 years for water. The current proposal uses a ban or a short-term borrowing in order to align with the FY29 debt service capacity of about $79,000 to complete the full borrowing for the water main and meters project. The reason that I'm proposing a short-term borrowing for the first 2 years versus doing the initial borrowing up front is to give the board the option of a lower rate impact for the residents. If the board were to choose to do the full borrowing up front, I would have to show a much higher rate increase accordingly, so we can have a discussion about that. Moving on to the sewer. Sewer is in what I would feel a better position. We also see the impact of Springfield Water contract. It's about $120,000 increase in our expense line, or about 21% of the total increase in the budget. We also have a request of main maintenance, which is about $225,000 in our expense line, or about 40% of the total request. These two items make up a large majority of the budget, and there's a small amount for debt service as well, as you'll see in the upcoming slides. In the same way, Time Bond also did some rate increases for FY26 and going on, with some much more modest increases in order to maintain two main goals, which was to fund capital and to reach a select board goal of $1 million of retained earnings. One of the main points of the Time Bond presentation was the select board has a enterprise fund policy for both water and sewer of $500,000 in retained earnings. As of FY25, or as of FY26, sewer has $461,000 in its retained earnings, and water has $852,000. So as a result of prior year's rate increases, we have hit the goal for water of a minimum of $500,000 and are quickly approaching the $1 million retained earnings goal. Moving on to the next slide. You will see our rate increases proposed for sewer for FY27. As I spoke to earlier, with the one-time increase in fixed costs for FY26, this proposal has a decrease in the fixed rates for FY27, as well as a 5% increase in the variable rates for sewer metered rates. If the board have questions about why this shows a decrease, I felt that it would be better represented to stay in line with FY25 to FY26 rates, as if there was not a increase for quarters 2 through 4 to pick up the revenue shortfall, this would have been more in line with FY25 rates. The next slide shows the borrowing impact on sewer. This looks at the same kind of principle where for FY27 we would do a short-term borrowing for the slip lining project with a full borrowing in FY28. Sewer is in a much better position where it has a substantial fall off in debt service capacity for FY28. It's about $259,000 that is now available, which would slot in really nicely for the slip lining project. Moving on to the next slide, just showing the two comparatively for both water and sewer, with both the budget impact of the full requests as well as the rates. Now, the next slide just talks about briefly what these increases mean for operations. The question about what this increase in sewer main maintenance would mean. I can have Lisa or Sean speak to it more, but essentially pipes have roof infiltration that needs to be ground out and cleared, which would reduce backups going forward. This has not been done in a long time and should be part of ongoing maintenance for the system. For valve exercising, as we just heard about water main breaks, these allow us to isolate where water breaks are. If the valves don't work, expands the area that we have to cover in order to isolate this break, which costs time and money. This money would go towards replacing the valves that are outside of the main water main projects that are usually funded in capital. Now, all of this to be said, how does this look for our residents? The last slide gives a comparative for low, average, and high users for FY27 for water and sewer rates. That's it.
All right. Anything to add before we start peppering the questions, DPW?
I can say it's been 4 hours and we haven't been able to isolate the leak in William Street because the valves are not been exercised. So it's just kind of good timing to talk. Sorry.
Do we have $10 million for a new tank, by the way? All right.
We could get there. Things are going pretty well.
Had to ask. I will just say for our presentation purposes and just going forward, I think, for the, if we just go to the second to last slide, the resident cost comparison.
Second to last?
Yeah, before the questions. I think that if, given our increase in the last year, I think that for these, it would be helpful to put in the previous year too.
Sure.
Because that has our big jump. And we kind of knew that we were making a big swing, and it would be, going forward, it would be less drastic. But I think, so showing that, I think is helpful, and also people can know where the stuff is going. Then on, one of the things I think is also good to cover, we have the increase in the purchase of water, and I think Lynn told me today what their rate is going up 6%, correct? Yeah, so I think that that's always helpful if we can get that out, because that, if we did absolutely nothing and said we're not touching a single pipe and had no expenses again, we'd still have to raise water rates 6%.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important to pass on.
Sure.
So other than that, I think that this is well laid out. We had a plan. Ty and Bond gave us some good guidance on this, and this board has committed to doing this work. I think now it's just a question of, and we have people who are, I just got my electric bill, which is incredibly high for some reason, even though I have solar panels and yada yada. And gas is obviously absolutely destroying people with the rates, and especially with our freezing cold winter. So we have to be cognizant of what people can bear, I think, while also realizing the commitment that we've made to making sure that our infrastructure works and DPW is funded to do that. I appreciate that there's always a lot of thought that goes into this, and but that's just something I want us to think about, and how we want to be fair to our residents while covering our costs. I think that this year, with the notice to people on what the rates are going to be, we are going to have at least a little bit of, well, you don't know how the weather's going to be, but some curtailment on use. I think that people will maybe water a bit less because of the bills last year, which is good, but it's not good for our budget. So that's also something else to keep in mind. So I will stop prattling on. If anybody else has comments or questions, I know we're not setting the rate tonight, but we need to have, we're starting the conversation. So, Andrew?
Oh, yeah, I actually, thank you, Ian, I spoke with Ian for an hour on this on Friday, and I really, after all my questions were answered, I really felt you did a very thoughtful job. Maybe it will benefit the board just to explain some of the things that I kind of focused in on. My ultimate conclusion was basically kind of agreeing with Ian. He's proposing a 13% water increase, which I think is good because it's more modest than obviously last year. I was very pleased to hear that we're in a much better position with regard to the retained earnings, so that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. The main focus of my questions were, can you go to the borrowing impact water, like the fourth slide, with the green and the red bars, about how we'd handle this borrowing, frankly. So he's proposing doing the green bar as a first-year short-term ban. which essentially is not, it's not ideal because it's just kind of holding position, not paying any principal on this. But he told me, and then obviously do the significant borrowing in FY29. But I asked him what it would take to actually do the borrowing, like in a regular borrowing now, and he said that he'd have to raise next year from 13% to like 25% increase. And I just felt like kind of what Josh alluded to. I think that we are all very cognizant of what the reaction and the reality is from last year's giant increase. So I think that that's a very thoughtful way of handling this, and I was glad to see the sewer was in a better position. So overall, I think that we're kind of in a much more stable situation and going forward for this year, which was good.
Just to add to that, so folks might have a better understanding of like the numbers involved. We're looking at about it's an $8.5 million project for the water main, another $1.5 million to replace the water meters. Thankfully, DPW has some capital projects that have been borrowed for in the past, which are completed, and the town has the ability to reappropriate those funds to water projects or water borrowing specifically for equal longer terms. This allows us to reduce the cost of our water main projects, our $8.5 million project, by a significant amount. It essentially pushes it from $500,000 to, or $8.5 million to about $8 million, which saves us a considerable chunk of change. When the borrowing comes online, it's going to be about a $1.1 million hit to debt service. So that is a significant hit to the budget as well as our borrowing capacity. One of the reasons why Andrew and I discussed this as a short-term versus long-term thing is really looking at our borrowing capacity in the next couple of years, kind of strategize where our pain points are for upcoming projects. After the board just heard the presentation on the interconnection study in the water, the new tank, I was trying to look at what possible windows would be available for a project of that size, and I mean, we're looking at least 5 years out, if not longer, to have any available window for something of that magnitude. So I just want the board to understand that this is something that we do try to plan in advance, but given the size of the waterfront debt service already, due to the amount of projects that we're taking on, it becomes very difficult in the future to absorb this without rate impact.
Ian, is it possible to, in the future, let's say we wanted to have a 10-year plan for saving up for a new water tank, what would that make our ideal target for, like, retained earnings? Would it be like a couple $100,000 a year, invest that, just think about it for the future.
Sure, that's a great question.
Because that's hopefully where it would come from, ideally, rather than outside of,
There's
I had a
outside
similar-
borrowing or something.
Yeah, I had a similar type question, Ian. I'm wondering with some of this for kind of, since we're looking at so many things from a finance perspective, and maybe you already do this, but do we sit with the finance committee and have them help us run different scenarios just so we can see what the different debt solutions are against? I just think this could potentially help us tell the whole story to some of our residents as well. And with having a finance committee, getting them to help us look at kind of this in its totality, could we see different scenarios for things like this and how it would impact the overall budget for the town? I just think that could help us have like more holistic conversations when we set these rates, because I think this makes sense in and of itself, but then as we start talking about the water tank in 10 years down the road and some of the other things we know we're going to be doing from a road improve, like I'm just thinking if we can see it holistically, that might help us kind of feel super confident that, yeah, this is how we should be kind of thinking about this. And I don't know if you do that already and I'm just kind of new and I haven't really seen it yet, but that might be a great way for us to leverage that committee to help us make some of these broader financial decisions.
No, that's a great point. In terms of already the committees, in this specific committee, I'd like to give them a lot of kudos because they've really stepped up in terms of their involvement, the questions that they ask, and really their outlook on the future of the town. So this is definitely something I'd love to give to them in terms of, leaning on them for help with this. One of the projects that they've been helping me a lot on is our Prop 2.5 calculator in terms of seeing where we are in terms of our levy ceiling in the next next couple years in terms of projecting that out to see where our fiscal cliff is.
Yeah.
So that's something that they're very aware of, and they actually just updated their messaging on their website to say that they were comfortable for the foreseeable future, that we're not even close to that point. So
Yeah.
they've really stepped up in terms of being involved with town projects, and I think this is a great way for them to get more involved.
Yeah, I agree. You read my mind. I also think just coming up with the town meeting and what residents, I think having that information holistically, that can help our residents understand as we vote in town meetings what this actually means to us as a whole. So I just think the more we can engage the finance committee with you, Ian, and us, I just think that's more information for our residents, because just how we have to fund things, all the different types of funds we can and can't use. Residents every day don't understand all of that, and I think the more we can help them understand that, they might, just, it's easier when we have to vote in town hall and town meetings and everything. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ian, for putting this together. I think from where we started 3 years ago and kind of like radically shifting our thinking on this to where we are now, I think you're probably seeing that we have fewer questions because it feels like we are building on this conversation year from year, and it's building out in a productive way that makes sense. And so I think that that's a really big positive. I think you had asked what we may want to see at a future meeting, and I think one thing that would be helpful to me is that same slide that we have up there. I see that, with this with this ban that you're proposing, and then doing the main borrowing in FY '29, I'm assuming that will also correlate with that will cause a massive rate increase in that year. So kind of going back up a couple of slides, where you have, I think it's, let's see, the fourth out of 14, where you have like the out years and what Tigan Bond had proposed as rate increases. If we could see, if we do the 13% increase coming up, what are those out year rate increases? What do they look like?
Yeah, thanks, Vineet. That's actually, we were talking about that before our meeting, where some of the slides that we'd like to add in the next presentation is looking at those out years, specifically what that looks like for Springfield Water and Sewer increases, because as you guys well know, that is a large part of our budget that we are obligated to fund. So if we know going into next year, 7% of this increase is Springfield Water Sewer, we know going into it, if residents have questions, this is what's driving our rate increases. So I'll definitely have that in the next round.
Great, yeah, because I think just, it shows the town what our plan is, that these are the increases that we're expecting to make in the upcoming years. And I do think that, I will say the added benefit of doing a ban for this initial borrowing is after such a big rate increase, there is, I think, some value to not doing another big rate increase, especially for everything Josh talked about with the current environment and all of the the increased cost of everything, to give people some type of at least a little bit of relief here for a little while. That makes sense to me. And then what you also said about there not being any really room for taking on additional debt service until 5 years out. I mean, that in a way that is good news, because if we are going to do this water tank 10 years out, I mean, that shows that there is a window there where we can really properly plan for this and make sure that it makes minimal impact to us. So,
speaking of more slides for you to add, has Springfield, I guess it's actually would go on the slide beneath the assessment, has Springfield projected out their rate increases in the next 5 years?
Yeah,
let's
so
add
great
that.
question. I was actually just looking at that before the presentation, and they have a 5-year forecast up through 2031. So I was kind of doing some quick math to see what we would be looking at, and it's pretty staggering coming up. So it's something that I want to make sure that we have a long discussion on, because it'll be impactful.
Yeah, and the other thing, I know you did a lot of work on this last year, and maybe you have Excel spreadsheets with formulas that'll help. But if we, I'm a big advocate on the fixed rate. If we, and because it gives us a steadier outlook on, and we know that money will come in. So if you can look into the impact of raising our fixed rate, what does that do for our, the rate increase and just going forward? One, maybe we're just accelerating what time bond said to do anyway. But if we're right-sizing that fixed rate, I think that can help us just projecting. And then the other thing, I think it's always helpful for us to see, but also anyone who looks at this, how are we comparing with the other towns? Because I know that we are, I imagine we're still behind. But if we can look at what other comparable communities are doing, I think that that's good for us to know, and so to get that out to people.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we are, it's working, and that's great. I know DPW's been, has had the opportunity to do a lot of work that's very necessary, and we're making a more reliable water system for our town and sewers. So that we're doing what we set out to do. It's painful, but sometimes things are.
And just kind of just building off of what I said before about how, you know, it seems like we have fewer questions because now we have more of a plan and we're building off of it. Along those lines, I think I would like to also have us vote on a water rate this month, just for the reasons that you said, that then our residents will know what the rates are before, you know, Q1 hits. You know, I think we're meeting like every week this month, so, you know, at one of these meetings, I think we should, that, you know, we should take that vote and get that taken care of this month.
And then the question is, how are we getting it out to people? Because that, I think of everything else, it was a communication problem last time. We'll send out a mailer again, but you know, we gotta do what we did last time plus.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Josh, I'll just jump in quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate everyone's points here. I do want to reiterate, Josh, what you said too. Totally agree on the fixed rate. I mean, that's just something that I've brought up previously, where from a budgeting perspective, we, especially with climate change and not knowing exactly year to year what some of the users, our water users, our residents might be using for water or lack thereof, and the impact it has on our budget. This will give us annually a good lens into the numbers that we're dealing with and the projects ahead. So I totally second you, Josh, in terms of, you know, making sure that that's something that we're addressing moving forward. I think it's good budgeting for us to address some of these large projects, which is what we have been doing. The other piece I wanted to bring up as well was just a question for you, Ian, on the resident cost comparison. When I was looking at some of the low, the average, and the high, do you have any insight in terms of where, like, the numbers in terms of, like, how many households are in the high versus average? And this is probably on a previous slide. It was just more a curiosity than anything.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. I don't have a specific answer for you for, like, the breakdown of low versus average versus high. We're looking at specifically units used in order to get those. It's certainly something we can try to come back to you with an answer, but
I will say the low user was someone who didn't irrigate and they just used, you know, a handful of units every quarter. The average user maybe was a handful of units on the winter and then watered in the summer. And then the high user is just always using, you know, more than 20 units a quarter, let's just say. But I can get you what their units were.
Yeah, I mean, it was more a curiosity, but and then to what Vinita just mentioned regarding the, or maybe it was Josh, just around the next billing cycle. I do believe no matter how often we're communicating to our residents, that there's always going to be some questions, but I do think if we can try to get that vote in place soon so that we can at least make sure the residents are aware of.
Oh.
Mine froze.
And mentioned earlier with Everbridge, if that's something we could consider as well. But I do think we try to be as proactive as possible. And just finally, just want to say thank you to you as well, Ian, for all the work you did putting this together, and Lisa and Sean as well. I think, over the past few years, we've been talking a lot about water sewer, and it's good to see that we're in a much better position than we were, decades ago and just even a few years ago. So really appreciate everyone's effort on this.
Dan, just so you know, you cut out for a bit there.
Oh.
But we got
Sorry.
you, I think we got
Probably-
the gist. Yeah, you were.
Sorry.
No, it's
Probably
all
wasn't
right.
important anyways.
It was when you were talking about communications. I think we got up until Everbridge.
Yeah, sorry, bad service here at the hotel.
No problem.
Josh, I was just saying, for communications, I don't know if we could leverage potentially the tool Everbridge that Lynn was talking about earlier in her report. But over communication, I think would be a good thing around the water rates.
Okay, yeah. All right, anybody else before we move on?
Just real quick, so I can make sure that the conversation continues really well. What I'm envisioning for the next meeting for the board is like 2 to 3 different proposals for the board, so that they have, for example, here's what the rate would be if we do the bare minimum, we keep the lights on, we don't do any projects, here's what the rates would be. Here's what we do a couple projects, and then the full boat, so you kind of see like a gamut of everything. Would that work for the board in terms of a understanding of what the different options are?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right,
The
perfect.
only other thing I wanted to add is when we looked at those bar graphs and we're pushing out the borrowing to 29, we're hoping by that point our retained earnings has climbed enough that we're comfortable to use some retained earnings to cover the debt services. So even though the bar graph looks like 30% bigger, you're not gonna see a 30% increase that year.
Okay. That's the kind of planning we like.
Yeah.
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 Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the TRAG recommendation for designation of school safety zones. Lynn, is this you? Or is this
This
Chief
is,
Stocks?
I'm happy to take part in this, but Chief Stocks is here to speak to this as well. There is a memo attached to your agenda, and this was a topic of discussion at our most recent Traffic and Roads Advisory Group meeting. And the outcome of that, or the takeaway of that meeting, was essentially the group was going to recommend to the select board a path forward that was brought to us by one specific request, but we looked at it more broadly. So happy to have Chief Stocks fill you in.
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, as Lynn indicated, we, as a citizen, come forward with a concern about the traffic he perceived on Hopkins Place due to pickup and drop off at St. Mary's Academy. We deployed our speed trailer, we deployed some directed patrols, and while we didn't record the data that met or corroborated the citizens' concerns, one issue he did bring forward was that the zone isn't demarcated as a school zone. When we went out there, it is technically, there are the signs that show the students walking to school, however, the speed zone isn't set. So we had some discussion at the TRAG level. Again, there's really, the data we were able to record, it doesn't show a lot of speeding in Hopkins, nor have we had any incidents in my history there. But the roadway, Bliss Road and Hopkins Place, both by Mass General Law, the town can set that school zone. Any street that abuts the property of a school can be set to 20 miles an hour per Chapter 85-2 and Chapter 90-17. I'm all for it. Again, it's not that we have a lot of speeding cars there, but to me, it makes good sense to post that, again, the roadway sections that abut the school property of St. Mary's. And then when we looked at it a little bit more broadly, we determined that there's a few other schools that aren't posted, namely Yeshiva Academy. So the statute doesn't just limit it to municipal, city, and public schools. It can be private institutions as well. And then we looked around further. Williams Middle School, obviously with the new middle school being built, there's a section of Williams Williams Street that's not that long, but technically that roadway that's going to be abutting the property of the new middle school. That currently is not posted 20 miles an hour. We do have the high school that's taken care of. As you know, we have the speed display signs. Blueberry Hill School is fine. Center School, ironically, has Route 5 is posted 20 miles an hour. But when you look at the roadway inside the east part of the green, the one that's right in front of the school, that is not posted 20. Not sure why, but it's been that way since I've been here. So these are things we just wanted to bring it forward to you, the select board, to either approve or deny. But I think, again, it makes good sense to post the roadways that are abutting our schools a 20 miles an hour zone. The only caveat to that is Willie Ross School, which is right around the corner here. Technically, that falls into this whole conversation, but it is on the corner of two side streets. I'm not even sure if it would be applicable. It's not that I'm turning a blind eye to their safety. I just don't really think, I don't know how we could do that. So that would be the only school I think that would cause a little bit more logistical issues. Yeshiva being Converse Street, we'd have to put in some signage. DPW is left, but we'd want to work closely with them to make sure we're doing it in the most cost-effective but logistical manner, that we're doing it correctly. Obviously, with the MUTCD, the manual and uniform traffic and control devices. If you're having trouble sleeping, that's a good one. But there are certain demarcations that you need to have some advance notice of a roadway, speed limit posting, and all that. So, sorry for droning on, but that's pretty much what the TRAG came across. Again, fortunately, we don't have the issue of the initial traffic complaint on Hopkins Place, but I think it did open some great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. This is, I don't see any downside to it. If you support it, I think that this is a great idea. You might not know the answer to this, but my wife has a fancy new car, and when you are going now, when you approach a school, it says approaching school zone. It doesn't matter what else you have on the screen, it pops up. Is that something, I don't know if it's reading the signs, because I know it looks at speed signs, but is that something we can report to Google Maps or Apple Maps or anything?
So I'd have to look with the DPW on that one. I believe I don't know, I have a great answer. I think some vehicles have built-in technology where it's able to read certain signs. It's able to read the speed limit signs. I know there's certain vehicles that are allowed to do that. Others are ways after, we'll start getting the reports from municipalities. So I think it's a combination. I'm not sure it's a one quick answer for that, but I think over time it'll be self-reported. But when we do something like this, we would be notifying DOT as well. Okay. And DOT might be the conduit to those programs.
Yeah, that's great, because I even better than maybe in addition to a sign, it's nice having that in your phone, especially if it's dark or something.
Oh, absolutely.
It just pops up, and it is, I find it to be a good attention getter. So, yeah, that's great. Any other questions from us on the board? So what action do we need to take now?
Well, you can wait until your next meeting. It's generally, following that same idea. The idea was that the select board would support the TRAG committee's recommendation, and then we would order signs.
And this is within, these are all, well, most of these are the street setters are within TRAG's control per our policy.
Right.
So we're just supporting, are we supporting what TRAG does, or are we doing something?
You're supporting the recommendation. I guess it's one and the same, I guess.
Okay.
You're approving it. It's a permanent placement. I guess part of why we wanted it to come here is because the initial request came in for one school. But as TRAG started looking at it, we thought, well, really there's applicability for all the other schools. Why would we only do the one that brought it forward to us? So we just felt like for equity, we thought it should be broadened out for the others.
Yeah.
I think especially for Yeshiva and Williams on two very busy streets, Yeshiva, especially on Converse down there, I think that's a great idea to have that. And I guess I never realized we didn't have it there. I think it's very smart of us to do that.
I agree.
I can make a motion if we want to vote on it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So I will move to establish 20-mile-per-hour school zones on the portions of Bliss Road and Hopkins Place abutting St. Mary's Academy, as well as establishing 20-mile-per-hour school zones in other areas as recommended by TRAG. that lack formal school zone designations currently.
Second.
Anything further? Peggy?
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Hemaphathy?
Yes.
Ms. Mayor Dewar?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Swarko?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
Okay, I can't believe she didn't want to stay for this, but we are now, last up is designate our animal control officer, which is, we do this annually, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I will move to appoint Marty Lee Caramonte as our 2026 animal control officer.
Second.
All right, anything further? Peggy?
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Hemaphathy?
Yes.
Ms. Mayor Dewar?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Swarko?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Peggy?
I'm sorry, Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Hemaphathy?
Yes.
Ms. Mayor Dewar?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Swarko?
Yes.
Thank you.
You, good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Good night.
Thank you.